to episode 130 of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary, with Kristen
and Catherine, where we believe there's nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for our virtual book club where we take one book a month and dive into all of the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Except for these 2 months, it's been 3 books.
Yes, it has.
So, we finished Assassin's Blade last week, but we kind of figured that we could just have some closing remarks, some other thoughts on it. I actually did look up when things were written and that kind of stuff, because we had a lot of questions to each other about that. So I know when we started Throne of Glass, we kind of talked about it. This was, 3 years ago? I don't know. But when we originally did the first Throne of Glass book. Ages ago. Yeah. So Sarah J. Maas started that in 2002, and she posted it on Fiction Press. Assassin's Blade, the stories were actually published as separate ebooks between June and July of 2012. And then Throne of Glass was actually published in August of 2012. So, it was technically published first, but I still think she wrote Throne of Glass before she wrote those.
Well, if she started Throne of Glass in 2002...
Yeah.
And didn't release Assassin's Blade until 10 years later, 2012, then yeah. Do
you think she had the entire series written and then just I
don't
got
know,
a deal or something?
If she knew where the series was going?
No, but more so I know obviously things are different now. She has a baby. Mm-hmm. She had a second baby? Mm. Does she have more than one? Just one? I don't know.
I think it's just one.
I don't really keep track of her life. But obviously
her personal life.
Yeah. No. But and also her books are bigger now. She, with the worlds and the way everything is, I wonder if books are just taking longer because of keeping track of everything, the editing and all of this, or did she in those 10 years literally write the 7-8 books and then just have them ready because they came out bam bam bam?
I don't know, but also can you imagine having to keep track of all the friggin' Easter eggs?
Oh my god, I know.
She must have some wild sort of I can think of a storyboard with the string and connecting all the things. Especially now that she's Easter egging in her other series and calling back. I'm just
yeah. It's wild.
I feel like that person staring at the math numbers on on the board,
exactly, that meme.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Throne of Glass was August 2012, and Crown of Midnight was August 2013. Assassin's Blade was published all together in March of 2014, and then Heir of Fire was September of 2014. So
okay, so officially it was published third, as a book.
Yes, yeah, but then I went on Sarah J. Maas's website, and it said to check Bloomsbury for the reading order that's suggested, and the Bloomsbury website said to read in publication order, and then listed it fourth. So it listed it after Heir of Fire, and I was like.
But did Bloomsbury maybe not publish it until after?
Maybe
it was with a different publisher.
I can't imagine though. Either way, Bloomsbury basically said to read it before Queen of Shadows.
Yes.
And that it was important to get it in before that. But it also said that you can read it first and it won't spoil anything. So they're trying to be do whatever you want, it seems like.
Yeah, I do think it's important to get it in maybe before Queen of Shadows, definitely before Empire of Storms.
Oh my god. The amount that we've, connected.
Yes.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel there's also no shame if you don't want to read it or if you haven't read it.
Oh my god, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I have a friend that I got her into SJM last year, She started with ACOTAR, and then I think she did Crescent City, and then she did Throne of Glass. She did Throne of Glass last because it was just like, it's a bigger series, so it's more of a commitment. And she read it, and she has no interest in reading Assassin's Blade. She knows sort of what the deal is with it. She knows that it's a prequel and all this stuff, and she just doesn't care to read it.
Yeah.
And, like, yeah, there might be some, like, background, like, connecting the characters to her past and learning how she met them, but, like, I don't think you miss anything by not reading the main series. Or not reading it with your main series. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
If you don't read it, like, I don't think you're gonna miss this. It's not holding on to important information that you need.
It's definitely not. I think the, like, overarching, like, what you do in your life matters and who you affect comes back, and the kind of, like, the pull that the characters feel throughout the book, bringing them all together is kind of like, I think you kind of miss a bit of that part of it if you don't read it. But I, like, when I first started reading it, I didn't want to because I don't like books that are set up in mini stories. And I don't really know why, but I don't like short story books. And I get that, like, realistically, these stories run together, and if they weren't sold as separate stories, it would kind of be like different parts in a regular book.
Yeah.
But it was very much sold like these are stories from before. It wasn't really sold like this is an entire book kind of thing. So, like, I don't know. I don't really like that format for books, so I was kind of hesitant going into it myself, but I was also like, after Heir of Fire, I was like devouring it, like, I need to get to the next book, so.
and I will say that, like, and I said it again, but just sort of like, I feel like I just need to reiterate that, like, I find this book actually makes the emotional impact of Selena losing Sam, it lessens that for me.
Yeah.
So, like, like, you're so heartbroken for her whenever she talks about Sam and, like, going to his grave and, like, how broken she is until Rowan sort of, like, heals her. And I honestly find that reading the relationship, it just, like, I don't know, it just makes it less
impactful.
Yeah, because you realize that, like, their relationship, like, might have said that they loved each other, but, like,
they were small children.
They were small children, and they were together for, what, like, 2 months?
Yeah.
Maybe?
And she hated him for the first half of
her life.
Like, that month. Yeah. Yeah. And, like, we love in Enemies to Lovers, but I don't know, it was just, there was a lot. Yeah. I feel like it did kind of diminish how I felt about it in the beginning. And I kind of feel like some of that, I don't know, I feel like even if she wrote it differently and you could see a better connection in the short amount of time they were together, because, like, spoilers for Vampire Academy series for a second here, but they develop a relationship in that book that is also rather short before something tragic happens. And the loss in that book punched me in the gut. Like, that one I really felt, even though it felt like there wasn't a lot of development there. Like,
are we talking about the frost? Like, this?
No.
No.
That was sad, too.
You're talking about, like, the main main storyline.
Yeah.
I don't know, though, because I sort of disagree with that, and we're going way off tangent right now, but, like, I find with Vampire Academy, everything is leading up to that one relationship. Like, you read 3 books of that relationship.
Yes.
And you're in her head, and you get her feelings on that relationship for 3 books, complete books, and then, at the end, there's, like, a super gut punch that you weren't expecting.
It just felt like, I guess you're obviously expecting Sam to die if you've read these books first. I just mean, I feel like if she had have written, like, she could have written it differently and it would have hit longer, even if the relationship had been shorter.
Yeah, okay.
Like, sure. the entire book, the book could have been 2 fucking years. Like, she didn't have to make it 3 months or whatever it was, a summer. Like, she could have made it longer. She could have made she could have been like, when they were kids, like, she could have, it's a prequel, it was 5 separate stories. She could have been like, here's them as kids, they hate each other. Then they are awkward teens. Like, she could have developed this relationship over so much time and just really made it hurt us more. Yes,
she could have sucker punched us.
Yeah.
And she chose not to.
I just feel like, well, I also feel like she was just younger when she wrote it as well. I wonder if she would have made a different choice now, but yeah. So I don't know. It really did change how I saw their relationship. Obviously still felt super bad for Selena, but you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So yeah, sad book.
Yeah, and we knew it wasn't going to have a happy ending going in because it's a prequel. And
yeah, you know what happens.
Yeah.
But I will say, I do think you need to read it before Queen of Shadows because you go into Queen of Shadows and you are ready for Arabin to be taken down.
Yeah, to get his just desserts.
Exactly. So I did appreciate that for sure.
Yeah. No, I agree with you.
So yeah.
Okay, so just a heads up. We're going into it now when we're not a spoiler-free zone. Things might get saucy. I think they will a little bit.
Probably. There's like a bunch of different people getting up on each other.
Yes. Okay, so it's week 8 of our tandem read of Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn. This week we are reading Tower of Dawn chapters 44 to 57 and Empire of Storms chapters 60 to 67. Now, last week shit went down.
Okay.
So, Aelin and her crew went to the marshy things, were attacked by 500 Ilkin, and Aelin just took them all out, easy breezy.
Yeah, after everyone lost their shit.
Yeah. They met up with Lorcan and Alid, and Lorcan and Alid, like, I don't know what happened. They hated each other, or not hated each other, but they were mad at each other one minute, and then the next minute they know each other's secrets, and they're choosing each other, and
at the bit,
loving each other, and willing to die for the other person. Like,
yeah,
it's extreme. It was very hot, or very cold to very hot.
It was very hot. You know what was hot? The marshes when Aelin boiled the fucking monsters.
Yes. Yeah. Then they find a mirror in a ridiculously large chest because what else? What other kind of mirror could it be? This is apparently the lock, but it's not a lock, it's a mirror.
Yes.
Then Aelin decides to surprise everybody and go, haha, surprise! And reveal that she has had a secret plan getting Ansel, Briarcliff, Queen of the Wastes, to get her an armada from Melisande and bring her army from the Waste, and they've got a whole lot more people than they thought they had, and Aedion feels like shit.
As he should.
Then Aelin does a red flag moment and tells
that's how we ended too.
It is how we ended, right on our red flag of Aelin thinking to himself that Lysandra and him will end up together, and he wants this hunt to last because it'll be his last one. Blech.
Yep.
Anyway, who else? Chaol and who else?
The whole other book.
Chaol and Yrene didn't really do very much. I guess they started kissing. They're together now. They're on their way to the Oasis to try and figure out what's going on out there. And Nesryn and Sartaq, oh my god, they're in trouble. They're being hunted by spiders. They're running.
Oh, yeah.
So we sort of left off on a cliffhanger with them. I'm just not liking where everybody is emotionally in this section. Okay, so I think that's everyone. We'll find out. If I forgot anyone, I'm sorry. So, we're starting with Tower of Dawn, chapters 44 to 48. So, it's Yrene's point of view. Her and Chaol just, raced across the desert on their horses. And the bet was whoever wins gets to kiss the other whenever and wherever they choose. And we don't mean wherever, like location. We mean the body.
You mean location on their body.
Yeah, sorry, I don't mean spatial location. I mean body location.
Yeah. I just, I would kiss his finger and tell him to go fuck himself. There's no losing for him in this bet.
No. Either he's gonna get to kiss her, or she's gonna kiss him.
Yeah.
Woo!
And by, I don't know. I'm annoyed.
Yeah. He annoys us all the time. Yes. So they race to the Oasis, and we said the last book that it's the freest that both of them have ever felt, and they're they're laughing, they're having so much fun. It's not as if there's a war going on the other continent. Anyway, so they get to the Oasis, and it's just a really big pool in the middle of a desert, and there's tents set up around it. But each of the siblings, the royal siblings, have their own tent, and these tents are up all the time. They're not like camping tents. You don't take them down. They stay up all the time.
Are there no sandstorms? Are there no hurricanes?
Maybe there's someone stationed there, at all times, to make sure that nothing gets...
Oh, there probably is.
Although I will say, I thought Chaol mentioned, in passing in his head, I can't believe people don't steal this stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe
they leave gold and shit
there,
too.
Yeah, they just leave it all set up all the time. And he's like, how do people not steal this shit? Anyway, so each royal sibling has their own huge tent. And, Yrene mentions that, the tents are bigger than her childhood house. They're ginormous. It's like castle away from castle.
For one person.
Yeah. And because, obviously, only Argan, Hussar, and Cashin have showed up, right? They're the only 3 royal siblings that went there. Chaol and Yrene actually get to stay in Sartaq and Duva's tents.
Fun.
Yeah. So Irene's like, Chaol, I need to check you out. As a healer, she wants to, check out how he's doing after a ride that long. And they go to her tent for that. And then he reminds her that he won the race, and therefore the bet. Yeah. Woo! But he doesn't kiss her there.
Or anywhere. Sorry.
So...
Very serious medical work about to happen.
Yes. So she checks him out. Everything's fine. And they go back out to the Oasis, and, people are, heading in. It's really hot. Lazing by the water. It's a beachy scene. All that they need is a beach ball. But they have a job to do. Like, they're there for information. So Yrene just sort of makes out that, like, ooh, I'm not comfortable swimming in front of everybody. And Chaol's like, how about we take a stroll instead, milady? So they use that as a cover to go find the cave.
The stroll.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So they walk to go find this cave that Nusha mentioned. And on their walk, Chaol, like, brings up the hot springs in Aniel, which brings up a conversation of, like, Chaol's training. And he admits he's naturally gifted at training. Ugh. And that he has been since he was a child. But his real training started at the castle with the guards. They're the ones who really trained him with the sword and everything like that. And apparently he said, like, they kicked his butt every day in the training ring, but at night, they made sure he got patched up at the barracks. So, like, they're his real family, he thought, right? They're the ones that took care of him. And he tells her that they were good men. Like, emphasizing the were, because we all know they're dead now.
Yep.
And then he opens up and tells Yrene that they were tortured and butchered and left on the castle gates, but none of them broke. None of them told the king anything about Chaol's rebel activities. And he admits that the king did it to punish him for helping the rebels, and that all of the guards are dead because of him. So, like, this is a big admission for him. Like,
yeah,
he's been thinking it in his head for a really long time, but I don't think he said it out loud.
No, I guess he hasn't really had to, because, like, Aelin was there when he saw them, and she knew. Yeah. Like, she knew what it meant. Mm-hmm. But, yeah.
Anyway, Yrene tries to, like, make it better, and of course you say what you think you should say when someone says that, like, you can't blame yourself, like, it's not your fault. But that's the wrong thing to say to him, because he thinks that blatantly that's obviously not true, and he just keeps walking. So, like, it's a little moment of, like, friction, I'll say. So they look around and they can't find a cave, but instead they find, like, pillars and sort of the indication that there was ruins there. And they realize from markings on the ruins that the people who lived there were not ancient cave dwellers, but a different culture of people altogether. Because, like, I guess they ended up finding, like, what do you call it? The thing where you, like, sort of go in up like no.
Ruins?
Yeah, ruins, but like the buildings where you go underground and bury your dead.
Tombs?
Maybe. Just one of those words that will probably...
Sarcophagi?
No, it's like... Anyway.
That word does come up, though, later.
It does.
About them.
Yeah. So, anyway, but... they find, like... They notice, like, I guess, an entrance to, like... They see, like, something that indicates it's, like, a burial ground, essentially. Mm-hmm. But, so... Just the fact that it's a burial ground indicates to them, and I guess the markings on the pillars indicate this is obviously a different culture of people than Southern Continent people, because the Khaganate people, like everybody in the Khaganate, they don't bury their dead. They leave them above ground, which is weird. Not weird. I don't want to, tear someone else's, things down, but, like...
Does it say what they do, though? Like,
it just says they leave...
it just in, like...
I don't know, that's what I'm saying. Like, do they just, like, leave them, like, just where they... But, like...
Where they died.
But, like, then you could just walk upon a dead body at any time.
No, they definitely don't do that.
But they also can't have, like, a dedicated zone for them. Because then it would be like Six of Crows with the dead people barge all over again. Except it wouldn't be a barge. Yeah. It would just be a spit of land with piles of dead people.
You'd think with, like, the healers nearby, they'd come up with, like, not to bring it back to Vampire Academy, but a potion that'll, like, get rid of, you know.
Oh, yeah. Like lie.
I don't know. Yeah.
I
don't know.
That's my
Maybe
dead body.
It's
my dead body get rid of scenario.
You can't say that. Because then you can't do it.
I mean, no, it's not.
Fair. I believe you.
Thank you. Anyway. So yeah, like, I don't know what they did with the bodies, but they don't bury them. But I also understand why they don't bury them, because it's sand.
Oh, true, yeah.
So, like, I get...
But it just makes me wonder if they just have, like, the like, tombs and stuff. Like,
Well, like, above ground, like, those big, like, houses that are just dead people.
Yeah.
It begins with an M.
Mausoleum.
That's the word.
Okay. We did it.
I
was just thinking of Lord of the Rings. When he tries to set himself and his son on fire. Lee.
Oh, yeah, great, yep. Those are heartwarming thoughts to have before bed.
You know.
So they realize that the site must be important to the Torah. Torah? To the Torah,
To the Tor! Sorry.
But, like, so they think it must have been important for the Torah, but, like, obviously the importance has been lost over time. Because they don't talk about it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, anyway, Yrene tells Chaol that this land has always blessed healers. So she's like, if they just make a whole bunch of leaps in this moment.
So many. I was like, we're just fucking flying.
Yes.
And like, what? I could barely follow the leaps they were making.
I did not follow the leaps. I didn't. I just didn't follow them. I'm just like, wait, how are
hoping you'd explain it to me.
Yeah, no, I was just like, oh, okay, so this is what they think now. Great. Okay, sure. But like, so literally, the fact that the southern continent has had effective healers, Irene's like, oh, it must be like a sanctuary, meaning this land has been blessed by magic to offer a refuge to healers, indicating that healers must be important in the war against the Valg.
Wow.
Yep. That's the leap.
Yep. Yep.
And I mean, like, I get a little bit more into it. So, they find a bunch of columns, and there's pictures of Fae armies, and I guess they can tell that they're Fae armies, fighting Valg armies. And, like, as they follow the columns, it tells them, like, a story. And then they find the mausoleum-y thing and realize, oh, hey, that's where all the scrolls came from that they had. And then there's a gate with ancient Fae writing on it. And they realize, this is a Fae burial site. Even though, in history, only one group of Fae left Dornell. And that was to establish Terrasen, which is why Terrasen also has Fae, like, in their bloodline. And Dornell has Fae in their bloodline. But there shouldn't be Fae anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
But there's Fae here. Well, not alive ones, but there's Fae ruins here. And Fae history here. So they're like, oh, wow, these people, either they covered up that they were coming here, or they left so long ago it predates, like, their history that they know about. So they're assuming that these guys settled here before Terrasen even existed, before Brannon, and maybe it's here to hide something, considering the Khaganate was such a strong empire, they felt protected enough to bring something here to hide. And then Chaol leaps that the magic in the Fae's bloodline trickled down into humans, gifted for healing, and maybe it's a possible weapon. And there's only one other place with that many healers. And it's in Doranel, where Maeve keeps them guarded.
I don't know why we're leaping to that being important. Like, some of these leaps I could maybe follow to be like, healers can fight the Valg? Like, I can...
Can you, though?
No, I cannot.
No,
but
it's
I can...
ridiculous. They're leaping all over this stage like they're in the Nutcracker.
Yeah. I don't know.
I shouldn't say stage. I should say page. We're leaping over the page. Like it's the Nutcracker. Anyway, sorry. That's my joke of the day.
I liked it. You gotta workshop them sometimes.
Yeah. Anyway. So, they're noting that healers must be important since Maeve keeps such a large conglomerate of them.
How would she know anything, though? Leaps and bounds.
Yeah. Well, I guess she was around for the first war, wasn't she? With Brannon and all that. So I guess they're assuming that she's just old enough that she knows things. So they wonder if... Then, another leap. They wonder if the person attacking the Torre and attacking Yrene did it to make them not recognize that healers are important and to stop Yrene from healing Chaol. So now they're leaping that healing Chaol is important. It's gonna help them discover things.
Yeah. I can understand why somebody would want to kill her to stop her from realizing that she can heal Valg shit, but you can't just jump to this conclusion.
No.
Like, that's not actual motive.
No, all the leaps in this section were wild.
Yeah.
Wild. I didn't follow it. I tried my best.
No.
This is as far as I got. This is as good as you're going to get.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry.
It didn't make sense.
No.
The end.
No. It doesn't. Nope. Not even a little bit. Anyway. So, they want to go back ASAP and get the scrolls that they have hidden in the room. And
why?
So they can show them to Hafiza. Because they're only just now thinking maybe Hafiza can read the language. Since she is like, so you know how Sartaq is dealing with his like dead mother and how she's like a story keeper and has all this knowledge? Hafiza, same thing for the Torre.
I'm stupid.
Yeah, so they're like, hey, maybe she can read this shit. And it's like, you couldn't make that assumption
maybe we
earlier?
check this before now.
Anyway, God.
Or talk to her about anything at all.
Can I just say... Chaol and Yrene are meant for each other. Like, this whole... this proves it. They belong together. Yeah. Anyway. They obviously can't, like, rush out right now. Because, like, this is Irene's birthday celebration. She's the one who sort of coerced, in a subtle way, manipulated Hasar into planning this whole thing for her. So it's not like they could be like, well, this is fun, see ya. So they have to stay the night, and then in the morning they're gonna make an excuse that they have to leave. And Chaol is actually gonna send for Nesryn and be like, bitch, you need to come back.
Because we discovered something?
They discovered that healers are important. So apparently that's enough.
Shouldn't we already just know the healers are important?
Oh, you would think, but apparently not enough.
Okay.
It's just... Anyway.
I agree.
Chaol, he's also decided he doesn't want to wait for the Kagan anymore. He's done.
I thought you were going to say he doesn't want to wait for Nesryn to come back before
That too. But, like, more so. He just doesn't want to wait to, like, try and barter for armies anymore. He's like, no, I'm done. So they spend the next few hours lounging and like pretending they're having a good time, and then they have dinner and they gotta dress up, and of course Hasar brought Yrene a beautiful dress to wear, and Chaol thinks she's beautiful. And Yrene and Chaol sit next to Hasar and her partner Renya. And Hasar is actually sincere for a moment. Literally one moment. Saying that she knows, it's sort of like a toast, I think, and she says, like, she knows that she isn't an easy person to care for, but Yrene has never made her feel that way, and it sort of makes me feel bad, like, for a split second, because Irene's like, oh, yeah, sure, you're welcome. I've never noticed.
I just tricked you.
I just
tricked you into making me come here.
Yeah, and, like...
Used that, yeah.
Yeah, and, like...
Yep.
You manipulated me, and you sort of... What did she do? That word starts with a... You bribed me, but in a bad way. Coerced. Blackmail, yeah. Coerced. Like,
yeah.
Into spying on Chaol for her. Like, yeah, sure, you're a great friend.
Yeah. Yeah. You won't ever get back to your home again.
Besties!
Yeah.
Anyway, so throughout the course of the meal, Hasar actually brings up Aelin again and suggests marrying one of her single brothers to Aelin, aka Sartaq or Cashin. And then the Southern Continent would actually ally with her.
Do you think either of them would survive? I can kind of see, like...
I could see them surviving political marriage. But I think they would both have to duck for cover when the magic happens.
Yeah. Like, I feel like Cashin would just be, like, a soldier to her and, like, loyal to her, and it'd be fine.
Yeah, but I feel like any sexy times would be off the table, because we've seen how Aelin can't control her magic.
Hot she burns!
I feel like it would be a turkey baster scenario if they needed an heir, like...
Yes.
Anyway, so I guess at that suggestion, Chaos, is like, ha! It ain't happening. Because, she's already got somebody. And, like, she's in love with Rowan. And, like... And everybody knows who Rowan is. Like, he says Rowan Whitethorn, and everyone's like, ooh, Rowan Whitethorn. And Argan's like, I didn't know he wasn't bloodsworn to Maeve anymore. And Chaol just sort of tells him, I don't know if he tells him the whole story, but just tells him, like, no, now he's sworn to Aelin, and they're Karanam, so, like, their magic sings to each other. And, like, just sort of tells them how that sort of came about. And of course Hasar and Argan think Aelin is a brute for threatening Dornell's people, but Chaol said it was for the most powerful female in history that she was in love with, who's an asset for any court. Which is sort of like...
Look at Chaol changing his tune. Like, what the fuck?
Sakes.
Fuck off. She told him that and he was like, you're a monster.
Yeah.
Literal quote.
Yeah. And then in the literal last book, he's like, oh, I can't give her a good character reference because she killed Archer.
Yeah.
And now he's like, she's straight up crazy and I'm okay with it.
Although there's something that happens this week that made me realize why the Archer thing gets him so much, but it's kind of funny, so I never noticed it before.
Okay, I can't wait for you to bring it up.
Yeah.
Anyway, Argan just says that, like, if they're in love, then people will know how to get to her through him. And then Chaol just laughs. Like, Chaol is done giving a fuck, which I sort of appreciate.
Which I'm kind of here for it.
Like, he was trying so hard to be, like, keeping his mouth closed and, like, not laughing and just sort of having, like, political, witty repartee with the siblings, and now he's just like, I don't give a fuck. He just laughs at Argan, which, like, pisses him off, and he's like, if you know Rowan, you know that he always walks away. Like, there ain't nobody getting to Aelin through him, because he won't let ya.
Yeah.
And then Hasar pivots in a really weird way and says that if the queen is unavailable, maybe Yrene can fill in instead. It's just a weird segue.
Yeah, but it's just to, like...
I know, it's to...
be like, I know something's happening between you and you guys, so I'm gonna bring up caution.
Anyway, Yrene sort of makes the comment then, like, I'm not a noble-born, like, you can't... A marriage with me is not beneficial. But Hasar's, like, thinking... Hasar sort of says, like, maybe because Chaol is the right hand of the king, they could discover a noble title for you. And then, with that noble title, you can marry one of my brothers. Mm-hmm. And she said, she always thought that Yrene and Cashin would make beautiful children. Bitch, you want to get her, like, snipped so she can't have kids if you're made the queen. Or the Kagan or whatever. Just said it, like, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So, I'm just... Hasar, I don't understand what you're... Like, I know she's just digging at Chaol, but, like, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so because Yrene is, like, the unspoken heir of the Torre, like, that's power. And maybe she should wed Cashin. And to his credit, Cashin does try to deflect and talk about other things. Because, like, he knows he's not getting anywhere with Yrene at this point.
Well, he also doesn't want his sister to be, like, digging into it and be like, that's awkward anyway.
But, Chaol seeing red. This is his dickhead moment. And this bugs me. Another thing bugs me about this, too. Go ahead.
No, it's just like, it's similar to Cassian trying to play like a courtier in the last book. Like, they can't keep their tempers, and I'm just like, people are doing this on purpose. You just need to let it go.
Yeah.
Be like Elsa.
So this is the thing. The talk of Yrene marrying Cashin, or anybody, I guess, has Chaol so enraged that he blurts out that Yrene will not marry him, as in Cashin, which is a little insulting, considering, you know, Cashin is the prince of the realm, Hasar is the princess of the realm, Argan is the prince of the realm.
He's nothing.
He's like a visitor. They're like giving you everything, the food on your plate, the clothes on your back, your healer, like all that. They're doing out of the good of their good graces, and you're just sort of like insulting them.
Yep.
And Yrene actually like does consider the proposal for a minute, and actually thinks like, if this could solidify allies, like maybe she should do it. And Chaol is like looking at her and knows what she's thinking.
Of course he does.
And then tells her, don't even consider it. And then tells Hasar she's full of shit.
Smart.
Yeah. And the thing that bothers me about this sort of interaction is he blurts that out. And again, like, I still think we're in Irene's point of view. And she's like, makes this, again, this grand leap that he's not saying she can't marry Cashin, even though he is. In her mind, she's interpreting this as, oh, he wants me to speak for myself and be able to choose for myself. And I'm like, no, bitch, he's jealous.
Yeah. He just told you not to think about doing what's best for your country.
Yeah.
Because he wants to put a baby in you.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah. And she's like, okay. Oh my god, he wants me to think for myself. He wants me to speak for myself and be independent. Oh my god, he respects me so much. And I'm just like, girl, no. It's not what's happening here.
Yeah.
But it's what's happening. Anyway. So, Argan obviously gets pissed off because Chaol told Hussar she's full of shit.
Why the fuck is Argan there? He's a piece of shit.
I don't know. Where's his wife? He, like, doesn't exist.
No.
Anyway, so then he doesn't say anything else, and this is when Yrene is, like, recognizing that he's letting her decide for herself, even though he just told her, don't think about it, don't do it. She's like, he's used to giving orders, and he's giving her a choice. And I'm like, no, he's not. He's just shutting up because he knows that they could, like, behead him for no reason if he keeps talking. Anyway, for some reason she trusts him, and she doesn't trust the royals that she's known for multiple years.
Yep.
It's fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
So, she eases the tension, joking about why should she choose one when she has so many in her company right now for her birthday. Which I will say was a good play on her, like, on her part.
Oh, 100%. She's smart. She can play the game.
Yeah.
She's not here to be manipulated by petty remarks.
Yeah.
She's manipulated in other ways. But.
Yeah. So, she keeps drinking wine throughout the whole dinner. And at the end of the meal, she's drunk. And Argan makes a comment about people from the north not holding their alcohol. And Chaol says that Aelin and Aelin could drink Argan under the table. And, like, they probably could. But, like, I don't understand why that's necessary. Like, why?
We've also never seen evidence of Aelin drinking around Chaol.
No, not really.
Like, Aelin has. Well, or has pretended.
Yeah.
But, like, we haven't. Like, Chaol has never seen Aelin drink. Like, they may have had wine on his birthday once.
Or, like, one ale at a tavern or something like that.
Yeah. But, like, half the time that she drinks, she's pretending. Except for, obviously, when she was in, was it Wendelin? Where she was just getting trashed on the rooftop.
Yeah.
Big fan of that.
Yeah.
But, Chaol didn't see it.
Nope. Unless she told him about it when she got back. And was like, so dude, for like the first 2 weeks when I was at Wendelin, I was just trashed every day.
It was so great. I wish I could go back to that. Fuck this war. But even if he was like Dorian and Adian, like those are people you've actually seen drink.
Yeah. Well, it's just funny because he's like, oh, I can't give her a good reference, but I'll compliment her drinking skills.
Which I've never seen.
Yeah. Anyway, so he said they could drink Argan under the table, and then Hussar digs in, or under a chair, making a dig at Chaol and the wheelchair. And Yrene was...
I don't think I got that.
Oh.
Thank you for explaining.
That's how I interpreted it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Because I was like, under a chair.
Why is that insulting?
Sitting under a chair. That sounds cozy.
Yes.
Anyway,
so Yrene was so mad. Because, like, Chaol never complained about the hard work. He just complained about being in a chair. But not the hard work involved with it. So...
Oh, that's that makes sense. Obviously, it's a dig at the chair.
Yeah.
I get it. Thank you.
So she pushes Hussar into the pond. The little oasis.
Good.
Just pushes her right in. And Yrene immediately knows it's a mistake, but again, she drunk. And Hussar, like, stands up, dripping wet. Like, the oasis it's not deep. She's not gonna drown. Yeah. And she's like...
good. Yeah, that would be bad.
That would be really bad, yeah. And she just glares at Yrene, but Renya and Caution start laughing. So Hussar just, like, gets out and tells Yrene she was wondering when she would grow a backbone, and then she walks off to go to her tent, I guess, to dry off and change. So, like, Yrene was, like, thinking that she would be immediately sentenced to death, and she was afraid of it. But then, so, like, she's not dead. But she sort of realizes that Renya and Kashin laughed to break up the tension and sort of not make it so serious, so that sort of would save Irene's life. And Renya just says, like, you guys should probably go. So they both go back to her tent, and, like, Chaol's furious that she put herself at risk, but also finds it really funny. Yeah. So
fair.
They talk a little bit about Chaol's relationship with Aelin then, and he sort of opens up about, like, how he felt about her, and how, like, she wasn't the same person when he fell in love with her. And when he did find out who she was, he knew he could never choose her over Dorian. And I literally wrote in my notes, not what happened, but okay.
Yeah, it kind of feels like SJM is trying to change the narrative of Crown of Midnight at this point, because she's, like, changed her mind on how she wants it to have gone.
Well, I think she's just trying to, like, do damage control on Chaol's character. Yeah. But it's like, no, dude, that is not what happened. You looked at her with disgust because you're racist against Fae with magic. And, like, you think that she's got too much power for her own good and someone needs to police her. Like, you didn't think that? Like, if I'm remembering correctly, did he not, in his fantasy of marrying her and putting babies in her, was the fantasy not them in Aniel? Like, no,
they were just gonna run. I don't
Oh,
remember.
They were just gonna run?
Yeah. He was Sam 2.0.
Oh, so
it was the same story.
So he could choose her over Dorian then.
Yeah. They were just gonna run to like somewhere else. Is how I took it. Like, just leave. Fuck all this.
All right. So again, he could choose her over Dorian when she wasn't a Fae with magic, and then as soon as she became a Fae with magic, he couldn't. So, all right, Chaol, you speak your truth, I guess, even though it's not true. I'm just so over it. I'm so over his warped, skewed version of events. Anyway. So, he then tells Yrene that Aelin left for a while. Doesn't explain how she left or why. And met Rowan.
That it was his fault.
Yeah. Met Rowan. And then says that Aelin and Rowan actually waited to get together until she came back and ended things with Chaol. That's not how I took it. Yeah. In Queen of Shadows. I didn't take it as they didn't want to get together until she broke up with Chaol. She scarred his face.
Told him he would always be her enemy.
That's not breaking up?
Yeah.
Anyway. And he even says he handled it badly. No shit, Sherlock. And then he sort of tells her that, like, Aelin and Rowan are... Because I guess Yrene might have, like, expressed, like, are you jealous? Or, like, said, like, do you wish that was you or something? But he tells her that, like, Aelin and Rowan are meant to be. And that if you ever saw them together, you would get it. And that Aelin scares everybody except for him. And that, like, Rowan sees her for who she is. And I'm like, that's, like, the one right thing you've said this entire conversation. Great.
Yeah.
And he also says that there is no one he would trust more to handle this war, even Dorian. And I'm like, you couldn't say that at the dinner table the other night? What is wrong with you?
He's not even consistent in his own head.
No.
How am I supposed to deal with him as a person?
I don't know. Anyway, and then he says, if there's a way to win, Aelin will find it. And then he reassures Yrene that he doesn't love her. Like, not Yrene, Aelin.
Don't worry, I'm not in love with you. I just want to put a baby inside of you.
Gross.
I know!
No, anyway, he just says, I don't love Aelin, and I don't love Nesryn. Did he ever? And then he gives her the birthday present he got for her. It's a locket. And it's meant for whatever it is she has in her pocket all the time. It's the note that Aelin wrote to her.
Ironic.
Yeah.
Like, this entire book, the only thing I wanted was for them to figure out that it was
Yeah.
Aelin. I was just like, tell her.
Yeah. And the locket is engraved with Irene's initials. And on the other side, there's an engraving of mountains and seas. So she won't forget that she got herself where she is by crossing the mountains and the seas. I mean,
It's nice.
sure, great. She liked it.
Yes.
But also, she then says that no one's given her a birthday gift since she was 1. So, it's not hard to, like, you know, she's easy to please.
It's like love bombing her.
Yes! Oh my god.
Oh.
And, like, keep in mind, too, that she still had too much to drink.
That's true. This is, yeah.
Right? Like, she got up and she was stumbly, had too much wine, pushed her friend into an oasis. Like, I don't care how much, like, you know how in books all the time people are like, that act sobered me up.
Yeah.
Like, did it though? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
You physically, I don't think that's possible. Like, witnessing something doesn't immediately make all the alcohol burn out of your system, so you're not drunk anymore.
No, but it's used a lot.
It's used all the time.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know if it was used here either. But, like...
If it's not, then there's some iffy consent issues.
Yeah, that's part of the problem, right? Anyway,
Yeah.
So... They kiss, and that turns into intense kissing, and then they're on the bed, and he's feeling up her thighs, and then she grabs his peen, and it feels great. Not just because he's being touched, but because it's Yrene doing the touching.
Ew. Stop.
That's legit what he says.
I cannot with you.
And then he asks her if she's had sex before. She has. Once. So, like, not a virgin. Woo. And he asks if she wants to, aka stop, or keep going. And she tells him to keep going. So, like, I guess there's consent-ish, apart from the fact that she's still intoxicated, so can't really consent. Because you can't consent when you are under the influence of drugs or alcohol. However, he asks.
Yeah. I guess, like, we can assume he's drunk, too?
Does that matter? Consent goes both...
Can't consent either?
Yeah, so there's mutual non-consent, so does that make it consent?
No.
Two negatives cancel it out?
This is not good in any situation.
Anyway, so...
Not great.
They have sex. I'm not going to go into all the gory details.
Fair.
But he feels like when he's with her, he's home.
Ew.
So that's nice for them. So then we go to Irene's point of view. And obviously, the sex was incredible. And they did it a whole bunch. And he made sure she came a whole bunch before he did. Like, she thinks about that.
Of course she does, because he's a...
Gentleman. Good guy.
Yeah, there's a word for it, but I can't get it. She's down.
Anyway, she feels safe with him. And then she tells him about how the stranger helped her in Inish. And shows him the note. And tells him it gives her courage. And Chaol tells her whoever it is, he will always be grateful to them. And I say, ha 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 ha.
Yes, I do say ha 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 to that as well.
'Cause it's Aelin. The bitch you couldn't defend a couple of days ago.
But have completely changed your mind on now, and also are now indebted to. Good. Fuck you.
And I say bitch lovingly.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, so then we leave them. They have their night together. And we go to Nesryn's point of view, and they're in a completely different situation.
That's true.
They are running for their lives. It's like, oh, Chaol and Yrene are like going to oases and have fancy dinners. Meanwhile, Nesryn and Sartaq are like uncovering all the shit.
Not making giant leaps. Learning stuff.
Yeah, getting actual concrete evidence. Anyway, they're running through the mountains. And they're hoping to find somewhere that Kadar can, like, swoop in and grab them. And they've been running for hours. Like, can you imagine running for hours? I'd be dead.
No. Well, I guess I have run for hours, but I haven't sprinted for hours. Like, I've done a half marathon. But that's not sprinting for your life. That's, like, leisurely running.
Yeah. Have you ever, when you do your half marathons, have you ever had to, like, stop and walk, or do you do steady jog the whole way?
It depends how much I trained before them.
Oh, okay.
So
you've done both.
If I trained enough, I'll normally run the whole thing. But if I haven't trained enough, then I'll have to stop and walk. Usually I'll walk the water stations, too, because you kind of drown yourself if you try to drink while you're running.
I've never done it. So, yeah, they've been running for hours. And, like, Nesryn knows that, like, the Karen Quee are just, like, following them leisurely, like, sort of knowing. Like, these are their mountains. They know every nook and cranny. Like, they're not in a hurry. So some parts of the pass that they're running through is, like, really, 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 really tight to squeeze through. And Sartaq's a big dude. And he gets stuck in a certain part of the pass. And finally, two Karen Quee approach them. And they're, like, just talking about and, like, teasing them about how they're going to take them to their home as their honored guests. A.k.a. eat them.
Yeah.
And, like, even Falcon, like, can't wiggle out of Nesryn's pocket. Like, that's how tight the pass is right now. And Sartaq, like, knows that Nesryn can actually move. She's not stuck. So he tells her to go without him. He's sacrificing himself for her. And that he heard the spy's stories of her and knew he loved her before he set eyes on her. And he wished that they had time. And then he's grabbed by the Karen Quee and ripped away as if he hadn't even been there. And it's like...
It's a lot.
But I love it so much.
It's, yeah... I like
But
it.
if we're talking love bombing...
I loved you before I even knew you. Like, that's what you say to your child. That's not what you say to someone that you're just meeting. But yeah.
Anyway, I thought it was a nice romantic moment, apart from the fact that he was getting ripped away and sacrificing his life.
Yeah.
But, like...
well, sacrificing his life is kind of, like, romantic.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So, like, Nesryn's like, okay, peace. No, she does. She is like, no! But she runs anyway.
You're a prince. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she runs, just keeps going to try and find help. Like, where are you getting help to? And she's sobbing. But she hears the Karen Quee behind her still and remembers that they talked about bringing them home and realizes that Sartaq might be alive. Good. Yeah. It's like the whole Frodo with the spider thing.
Shalom.
Yeah, it's like that all over again.
Yeah. People love big spiders.
They do love... And, like, can I just say, big spiders like that, like tarantulas, aren't usually venomous.
No.
So, like, how do they paralyze you and put you to sleep and wrap you up?
I guess.
And do tarantulas even have webs? I
think so.
Really? I
think some of them do. I'm just thinking of, like, going to pet stores and seeing them. Don't they have, like, some little webby spots in there?
I don't know.
Cages? I don't know either.
Anyway, so she reaches a point where it's a little bit more breezy, and Falcon can squeeze out. And she tells him the plan. She's come up with something. And when the Karen Kui finally catch up to her, she's covered in slices and blood as if she fell. So they grab her and start to wrap her up. And then it jumps to her waking up. And she's in like a covered part of the pass. And she sees Sartaq passed out near her, also covered in silk. And Falcon is, I'm trying to remember what, I think he's a mouse still. And he is nibbling, cutting the silk from her body. But he's not quite finished when a large spider approaches her to talk. They just love to talk before they eat.
I'm fine with
me
it.
too.
Like, normally I hate it, but in this situation I'm like, it's a spider. Yeah. They'll forgive him.
Okay. So, when you picture one of these things, do you picture it as, like, just a real big spider? Or do you sort of look at it as sort of like an anthropomorphous spider, like a spider butt and spider legs with a human torso? Sort of like a spider version of a centaur.
No, just a giant
You're
spider.
thinking just giant spider. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but for some reason I think I go spider centaur. I don't know why.
That's terrifying.
Yes!
Okay.
Anyway, I know it's weird. Someone respond and tell me you think of them that way too to make me feel better.
Sorry. It is more terrifying, which is like real.
I guess. Anyway, so she asks why Nesryn is poking around. And Nesryn just lies. She says that they were paid by a merchant to come see if they'll make a trade, since their sisters, the Stygian spiders, trade. But this Karen Kui leader is like, don't compare us to those traitorous filth. But calls them like soft-hearted for making trades. Because she's like, we were made to devour you. And she's like, we have no silk. We are here to wait. And Nesryn's like, what you waiting for? And then the spider reveals a dress. And she's like, we wait for our queen. And Nesryn's like, wait, you're not waiting for Erewhon? And the spider lady is disgusted. She's like, never him. We wait for our queen. The queen of the Valg, who in this world is called Maeve. Dun, dun, dun.
What?
So,
wild.
This is sort of our one of the big pieces of information. It's sort of the only reason to read this book. Yeah. As terrible as that is to say, this is it. This is why you read this book, for this piece of information. Because if you go into the next book not knowing this, you just miss out on a bunch of shit.
They'll tell you soon enough. Do. I don't think you really... Not actually. I do think there are other things to like about this book.
There are. But, like, this is sort of the big reason why everyone's like, no.
You can't
skip it. This is why.
This and the healer thing. Yes. Even though they jump to that without even really learning it. Cool.
Anyway, so we go to Empire of Storms now. So we're reading chapter 60 and 61 here first. So it's Aelin's point of view. They are on a boat, like her whole circle, and they're talking with Ansel. They're catching up. And they're talking about how Melisande has no Valg or monster influences, but after the war, they will have the Iron Teeth to commiserate with, which I don't really get. I'm assuming, do they mean, like, they'll be the losers and they'll be left in the world? And
maybe.
It's an odd comment.
Yeah, I guess if they think that they're gonna win, then Melisande is gonna have to, like, pay for the shit they did, and they can't hide behind Valg's shit. So they're like, them and the Iron Teeth are gonna be fucked, because the Iron Teeth are also working of their own accord. I guess.
Yeah.
But still, what?
Yeah. So Aelin asks Ansel to rally the Kraken witches. She says that's their next plan. They have to rally the Kraken witches and get them together, and also agree to share the wastes with them. And like, if I were Ansel, I'd be a bit pissed. Like, you want me to go get a host of Kraken witches who want to come in and take half my territory?
Yeah. But I also think she's just saying it to manipulate
Manon.
Maybe. I don't think she's actually serious.
Oh, okay.
But, like, that's just how I
Yeah,
read it.
no.
I was like, oh, this is just manipulation.
I appreciate that interpretation, because I thought she was serious.
She might have been, but I was like, can't ask her to do this.
That makes more sense. Well, and like, how the hell is Ansel gonna find the Kraken witches? Anyway, so that obviously pisses Manon off, because she's like, the wastes are mine. You can't, like,
take them.
But she's like, they're not yours to decide to partner, to share them. Like,
yeah.
And she also says, like, there are no Krakens left. Like, us Iron Teeth witches have hunted them to extinction. Which is too bad.
Sad.
Then Ansel lets Aelin know then that she heard when Aelin went to Endovir, and as soon as her crown and people were stable, she went to go rescue her and get her out.
Amazing.
I love it so much.
It's one of my favorite parts of this book.
Like, they're true friends. I don't care who you are.
Yeah. Well, and just, like, she felt obviously so alone at that moment. And to know that there were a few different people, even if, like, they couldn't succeed, but there were a few different people that had tried to save her. Like, it just means, it has to mean so much to her.
Yeah. Anyway, but, like, halfway to Endovir, she heard that Dorian got her out, so they just turned around and went home.
Okay. I'm like, oh, she should have just kept going, but, like, that's why it makes me think that, like, is this just stuff we're coming up with after the fact, Sarah J. Maas? But I don't believe it. I can't.
But then she also says that, like, not a day doesn't go by that she doesn't think about that extra minute that Aelin gave her to live. And Ansel also tells them that they figured out that it was Maeve setting the fires, obviously to make Aelin look like a tyrant, not a savior, which we sort of already guessed. But I guess we didn't know who it was. It's Maeve.
Yes, yeah, we weren't sure if it was Maeve or Erewhon.
And they realize that Maeve is close by, but they don't know why. And they don't really know what her next step is. So Aelin's like,
not good.
We need to leave. Like, having Maeve close by, not knowing what she's up to, that's bad. So later on, she is meeting with Rowan in their room, looking at a map. She's
meeting. Sorry.
Actually meeting for now.
Boo.
And she, like, they're looking and positioning where their forces are. And she actually has 3 armies in position to converge on Morath. So, like, she has been quietly positioning different armies in very strategic places. So, like, Adian, shut your pie hole when you talk about how she has no experience leading armies. Like, fuck off.
Yeah.
So they talk about, like, conquering, and Rowan's sort of like, the amount of power that you have and how spread out it is, like, you could conquer this whole continent and, like, unite it. And she just sort of is like, I don't want that. She's like, I just want Terrasen. I don't want to be like Erewhon. I don't want to be like Maeve. I just want Terrasen. Which is, I mean, like, shows maturity, I guess. The fact that she doesn't want to be a conqueror.
it's interesting too. It really parallels. It happens in literally her other series where they're like, do you want to conquer and become High King?
Yeah. And
it's just, is someone going to do it at some point? Oh, yeah.
Maybe, Bryce.
Crescent City. That. Yeah, I can see that.
Anyway, so yeah, she's like, I don't want to be like them. But then she's like, Rowan, I need you to do something for me. But we don't know what it is. Then we go to Manon's point.
We'll find out later, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, yes, it is something very sad. So then we go to Manon's point of view. Dorian just, like, shows up in a room, and they get right down to it. So he uses his, like, phantom hands magic to, like, feel her up.
So much sex in this book. I mean, in this week. Yeah. Because you were like, I don't know if it gets sassy.
It does.
So many couples coming to the boiling point.
It's just so far, this is the second couple.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, we also had a love declaration.
Oh, we did, yes. Yeah, that's true. Not but, between, at.
It's true.
So, like, it's just, they just get right down to it. They have sex. Manon actually lets Dorian, like, be on top, which is something wild for her. And obviously the sex is great. And when they're done, he tells her this was supposed to take the edge off, I guess, of, like, wanting her. But it doesn't.
Of course.
So he's like, we'll do this again. And she's like, that'll be my choice if we do it again. And so he's just like, okay, fine. And then he walks out. It's very nonchalant, like, interaction.
Yeah.
But, like, that's sort of her sort of saving face a bit, too, because after he leaves, she's like, shit, never let a man be on top before, and I do want him again.
Yeah. And she's like, she's just trying to grasp at a tiny bit of control. Yeah. And you're like, just have fun.
Just go for it.
Fuck it. Yeah.
And she actually thinks that, like, she's been around Fae and humans for too long, and she needs to leave. But Abraxas hasn't...
Running away from intimacy.
Oh, we love it. But she also knows that, like, Abraxas hasn't showed up yet. He left and when she went into the swampy bits and has not come back. So, like, but she's like, even if he did come back, where would she go? So, she's sort of stuck there. Then we go to Aelid's point of view. She's trying to sleep in a hammock next to Lorcan, but she can't. She says it's as if the goddess keeps nudging at her, but she can't figure anything out. I guess because she's sleeping in the bowels of a ship. She can't see anything.
Yeah.
Lorcan sort of looks at her and repeats what she said to Manon. She told Manon earlier, like, Manon, I choose this. Like, as in, she chooses him. So he just says to her, like, you choose this? And then he says, like, we need to talk. And they hold hands, and there's some emotion in his eyes, and it flickers there, and she can read it. But before they can say anything else, sailors call out a warning, and they're like, what the fuck is that? So they head out on deck. So another armada is approaching them. It's Maeve.
Oh no.
The Valg Queen herself. Which is, like, actually, I will say, it's a great time to find out, like, right at the end of that Tower of Dawn section, being like, Maeve's our Valg Queen.
Yeah.
And now it's like, hey, Maeve, what's up?
I love it. I love, like, who combed through these books and decided the perfect spot? Because thank you for your service.
Yep, that is a lot.
Yeah.
So we're in Aelin's point of view. We skip point of views, like, quite a bit in this little section. So we were in the leads, now we're in Aelin's, like, we're in Manon's, we're everybody. And Aelin's like, they have no choice to confront Maeve. They have 33% more ships than them. And those ships are better equipped and have immortal Fae soldiers with magic. So, like, they can't outrun it. They have nowhere to go. Rowan wants Aelin to run and to let him talk to Maeve. But she's like, no, I am not leaving you. And it's sort of the first time she has no idea what to do except just surrender. Then we go to Rowan's point of view, and he's pissed that it's Maeve that's sort of stopping them, like causing them to slow down, and not Erewhon. And that he didn't really know what Maeve wanted, but she sent over a messenger and said she wants Aelin to meet her at dawn on the beach. Not just Aelin, like everyone, but that's where she wants to accept their surrender. And he just feels guilty because he can't help Aelin find a way out of this. But he does have an idea since he saw all the ships, all the flags. Something came to him. So he sneaks out while she's asleep and visits a ship flying Rowan's family crest. And turns out it's his cousin's ship. And he sneaks into his cousin's room, and his cousin is up waiting for him. And they make pleasantries, like they grew up together, and Enda is the cousin, knew Rowan before Lyria, before everything happened with Lyria. And he tells Rowan that he looks better. I guess since, like, he lost Lyria. Like, he looks healthy again. And Rowan tells him that he does too, because wasn't he mated last summer? And Enda is, like, really stoked and happy. He found a mate and said it was worth waiting the 100 years for him. And Rowan just says that he knows and he understands.
Understands mates? Who's he thinking
I don't
about?
know.
Lyria or Aelin? Sorry, I don't know why I thought I was saying the wrong name. I was like, Selena.
I don't know, but they've put a lot of hints throughout this book of Rowan's feelings, like, being singular, as in he's never felt anything like this before. You know, the love never ending, blah, blah, blah. So he asks Endymion, just to listen, and he tells his and Aelin's story, and then he makes his request. And when he finishes, his cousin tells him he will consider it. Then he goes to each ship that has his family members on it, or is flying his family's flag, and makes the same speech and request. And they all respond the same way. And then he goes back to his ship and thinks that that's the best he can hope for. And then we go back to Tower of Dawn, chapters 49 to 51. Back to Nesryn's point of view. So she just learned this whole, like, Valg Queen, Maeve. And she corrects the spider and tells her that, no, Maeve is queen of the Fae. And the spider's like, that's what Maeve wants you to believe. So it's sort of like a dun-dun-dun. So this whole section is sort of Maeve's origin story. So...
And the reason we read this book.
Yes, and the reason we read this book. So Nesryn asks the spider to tell her the tale. And the spider's like, it's not going to help you earn your life back. Like, I'm still going to kill you. And Nesryn just sort of, like, appeals to the spider's vanity. And it's like, oh, I've heard you guys are amazing storytellers. I just want to hear one story before I die. And so the spider's like, oh, okay. So the spider tells her that long ago, in a world of darkness and cold, there was a kingdom ruled by 3 kings, and that they were the masters of shadow and pain. Which sort of reminds me of Azrael.
Interesting. Is Azrael Valg? Is that what you're thinking?
No, I'm wondering if maybe he has family that's, like, maybe that's where the Shadow Singer bloodline comes in.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So she then says that the world wasn't always like that, but the brothers waged a war and won and made the world a wasteland. And they ruled for 1,000 years until a queen arrived with new interesting power. I don't understand what they mean by arrived. Born? Just showed up out of nowhere? Like, and was she a queen already? Like, what was she a queen of? Because she's Valg, she's the same species as them.
Yeah, I don't really understand. Like, are all of this species, are there any, like, just regular old grunts? Or are they all
Well, they must...
royalty?
Well, there must be grunts. I feel like all the low-level soldiers that have Valg rings are grunts.
True. Yeah, because they need the princes need the collars. Mm-hmm. It's just weird.
It's just interesting how they phrased it. That a queen arrived. So, like, she's already a queen, and she just showed up.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I guess it could be kind of like an ACOTAR where, like, the High Lords kind of, like...
rule their own area?
Are, like, chosen, like, when the father dies, any of the children could be the one. Like, it's magic decides. So it could be that, like, she was born, and then because of her power, everyone could just feel that she's a queen now.
Sure.
At a certain point. I don't know, man.
I'll buy that.
Maybe all the High Lords have some Valg in them.
So...
I can't. I'm just, like, bitching about the leaps that they're making in Tower of Dawn, and here I am. Worse than the fucking Nutcracker.
I know, all the freaking theories.
Yeah.
Oh my god, what theory did I see? I saw a theory on TikTok that Nesta and Eris are actually true mates. Yeah. Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. I didn't like it enough to stick around and hear...
There's too many words.
But it had something to do with, like, their personalities and how she's fiery and he's Lord of Autumn. And
got fire magic.
Yeah. And how, like...
so stupid.
Yeah, it was something like that. Anyway, it was a really stupid theory, and I'm like, girl, it's not happening, but... Like, it's, like, one of those things, like, the leaps that we make.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, she showed up. All 3 kings wanted to wed her, but she would only ally with the strongest, so she chose the oldest one, Orcus. But he did not make her happy. Obviously not. He was a monster. So she used her power to pierce the veil between worlds, and she saw realms of light and green and song. And that's sort of how she learned about rifts and discovered a way to travel to a different world. So, one day when Orcus wasn't home, she did. She took her handmaidens, who were the spiders, and they stepped into this very spot that Nesryn is now captured in. And Maeve told them to stay here and guard the gate, just in case someone followed her. So... Orcus and his brothers learned what she did and figured out how to control the gates with keys and traveled from world to find her.
So just to get into some other series for a second, like, obviously in ACOTAR, the Daglin were the Asteri. Yes. They're not, like, they're a different race of conquerors that are just traveling around and trying to, like, take over.
There's a lot, I guess, conquering species.
I guess so. Okay.
So, Maeve knew that she would be found. So she found a long-lived people with sister queens, Mab and Mora, and tore into their minds with her power and made them believe she was their elder sister. And then she did it with all the subjects at the castle, and it made her the 3rd queen. So Reese level shit there.
Yeah. He made everyone forget about
Valaris.
Yeah.
Well, that was a family. Oh, he did it, under the mountain. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, it's Is he part Valg?
I don't know. Maybe. It would make a little sense.
Yeah.
So Nesryn then sort of like makes this connection that Maeve never reveals her power. Then, like, she never tells anybody what her power is. And she's lived much longer than any other Fae. So she's like, shit, she has a Valg lifespan. Anyway, when the three kings showed up in the world, they didn't know that Maeve was the Valg queen. And she used that knowledge against them to steal the keys, and she managed to banish 2 out of 3 brothers. But before she banished the youngest one, Erewhon, so, like, isn't it even more terrifying now that we know Erewhon is just the baby brother?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
the least
bad, yeah. So before she had the chance to banish Erewhon, Brannon stole the keys. So I sort of feel bad here, because Maeve was actually, like, she's trying to get out of an unhappy marriage. She escaped to a different world. They followed her. She was doing a decent thing. Like, banishing the brothers. And then Brannon was like, I don't trust you. And stole the keys. Yeah. And he knew that she was off. Like, he knew there was something odd about her. But nobody has encountered a female Valg before. And, like, apparently, according to the Karen Queen, they are extraordinary. However, all Valg are afraid of Brandon's fire. So, like, even Maeve. So, like, she didn't want to approach him. So, they have waited in this pass for thousands of years, waiting for Maeve to summon them. Which is wild. Like, can you imagine the dedication?
Yep.
I don't care who you are. I am not waiting for you that long.
Yeah.
I'm moving on.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, I guess story time is over. Because she's then...
Death time.
She's like, I'm hungry. So, she's about to, like, go in for the kill when another spider interrupts and says that there's a threat. 20 rooks, at least, are coming for them. So the leader's like, I'm going to have to go deal with that, but you stay here and guard the humans. So spider goes and does that. Then the spider is revealed. It's Falcon! He did it! Because we said earlier that, like, he couldn't transform into a spider. The biggest thing he could do is a wolf. He did manage it. I feel like it was I don't understand how all of a sudden he could do it. Maybe it's like an adrenaline thing. God knows.
He's a smaller spider
he
than
is,
them,
yes.
I think. But still, like, yeah, I guess.
So she frees herself from the webbing. She gets Sartaq, frees him too. They grab their weapons, which were conveniently left in the corner. And they head up, and Nesryn realizes, like, told her all she wanted to know and realized that they hate fire. So they light a fire using a flint in Sartaq's pocket, a strip of Nesryn's shirt, and a piece of Sartaq's braid. So he's, like, cutting his hair off.
Which made me so sad.
Also made me sad.
This is stupid.
But, like, also, how much hair does he have? He just kept cutting pieces of it off.
I know. I don't know. Must have a lot.
So then they were making fire arrows, and they were shooting them at, like, the mass amount of spiders that have started to converge on them. And she only has 4 arrows in her quiver. So, like, they keep doing the same thing. He keeps cutting pieces of his braid, and she keeps tearing pieces of her shirt. And they keep firing the arrows until they're out.
She's naked, and he has no hair.
So, Falcon sort of offers to hold the door. Or not hold the door. Hold them. Hold the spiders. So that Sartaq and Nesryn can escape. But tells them that his brother sired a bastard daughter to a poor woman in Rifthold and kicked her out when she was a child. And he's been looking for her for 20 years. And she is his family. So he asks Sartaq to find her. And that his fortune belongs to her.
My guy, you're looking for her for 20 years and you haven't been to the northern continent in like 10? What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, he obviously hasn't been looking very hard.
Where's the looking?
Like, would he not think of going back to Rifthold? To look? I don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
Can't.
He goes to fight the line of spiders that are held back. Like, they've created like a flame, like a line of flame to keep the spiders from crossing in. He goes to fight it. So, obviously, some of the spiders get past and go for Nesryn and Sartaq, and they're fighting with their blades, and Sartaq gets hurt, but they keep fighting, and a spider is leaping for Nesryn, and a rook comes and pushes it off the cliff. It's not Kadara, though. It's Arcus with Borte on top. So, Borte was allowed to come and rescue them. Well, not really allowed, but she did it anyway.
Yeah.
So, a rook grabs Nesryn and Sartaq in the claws, and Borte gives a signal, and then there are a ton of rook riders, and they're all firing fire arrows at the cliffs and the forests and the webs. And Nesryn can't stop looking at Sartaq and thinking about what he confessed to her, about how he's in love with her. And he smiles at her, and she smiles back as they fly away, while the Daggle Fells, which is what this place is called, burns. I don't really understand how they all knew how to attack, that they had to attack with fire arrows. Like, this is something Nesryn just figured out when the Karen Kui leader was like, we're afraid of fire. All Valg hate it.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you all know to use it now?
So we go over to Empire of Storms, chapters 62 to 63, and we're in Dorian's point of view, and he just, like, storms into Manon's room, and then Aelin's room, and just grabs both of them and brings them down to the cargo hold. And they're just like, what the fuck is going on? And he's like, come with me.
Oh, yes, yeah. Because, like, they're all in the middle of, like, well, I guess we're gonna have to surrender to Maeve.
Yeah. So he says he's figured out the witch mirror. And it was mostly because after he had sex with Manon, she was like, it'll be up to me unless you want to find out exactly what parts of me are made of iron. So he was thinking of her and iron. And that made him put some shit together in his brain.
Leap across the page.
Right? But he tells them that he's decided, because of plot, that the mirror's power is knowledge, and it will tell them how to use the keys and how to bind them. And then Aelin can, like, come use the keys against Maeve once she has all that knowledge. Aelin is like, I don't know if I trust that. Like, how can you make this leap? Which is fair. And he tells them about Deanna's words, which were, when Deanna was Aelin in Skull's Bay, she said, tell her that flame and iron, together bound, merge into silver to learn what must be found. A mere step is all it takes. So, flame is Aelin, iron is Manon. Together, they merge into silver, the mirror, to learn what must be found. A mere step is all it takes. So they need to step into the mirror. This is what Dorian has figured out.
Ow!
I do listen. Because sex.
Sex does that too, man. You know, it reminds me of that movie, Wimbledon, with Paul Bettany and Kirsten Dunst. And they're both, like, amazing tennis stars. He's at the end of his career. She's an up-and-coming star. She's favored to win Wimbledon, the women's. And he's, like, not favored to win the men's. And they start having sex. And it makes him start winning. And her start losing.
Jesus.
Because the sex clears his mind and does great things. But it doesn't do the same for her. It doesn't relax her.
Why?
I don't know. I loved the movie at the time, but now I'm like, ugh, what a terrible premise.
That's fair. Yeah. So Aelin doesn't necessarily agree with that because it all seems a bit far-fetched. And he says that it's just because he figured something out that she didn't. Which is like, she's got a lot on her mind.
God. The men in this book require so much coddling.
Yes. She just says that she ran out of time. And she says that, like, if they do this, she hopes that they don't end up in Morath. Because, like, nobody knows where the mirror's knowledge, but it could also transport them somewhere. They don't know. But Manon says she knows the way out. So Aelin comes downstairs to find them as Aelin and Manon just step into the mirror and disappear. So that's ideal. We go to Elid's point of view now, and Aelin is super pissed. And Dorian has a black eye because Aelin punched him in the face after they disappeared. Which I kind of think is stupid. Like, they made the decision to go. Dorian just told them. Like, they're their own people. They decided. But, okay. Rowan also showed up super exhausted, flew back, and just asked, where is she? And he and Aelin tried to, like, figure out a way to get in the mirror themselves, but they couldn't. So they have just disappeared. Elid kind of tries to smooth it over and says, like, what's done is done. But Aelin tells her that, like, if he wants her opinion on his missing queen, he'll tell her. And it's just so shitty because you're like...
He's being an ass.
She's a lady. Like, she's owns land. She's like...
Yeah. He's being an asshole.
It's her queen. Yeah. And she kind of tells him, like, she waited just as long to find Aelin as he did. So,
longer,
like,
actually.
Basically. Exactly. Everyone kind of looks to Rowan then, and Elid is just like, oh shit, Rowan's the one's calling the shots. It's not Aelin. And you're like, fucking obviously it's the Fae male that's hundreds of years old. But, okay. But she's surprised by it. And Rowan just says that, like, they'll all keep getting ready for the battle. And he says Maeve will, like, yield the blood oath with Fenris and Gavriel and Lorcan when it will hurt them the most. So they kind of have to, like, do something about it. But they don't. So that's fun. And Elid is just in her head thinking, like, she wants to give Maeve a piece of her mind for using Lorcan like that and shit. And you're like, you're a child. Lorcan tells Fenris and Gavriel that if they fight against Maeve, they're dead. And he says he already is dead, so it doesn't matter what he does. Elid is just, like, wants to hold his hand and be like, you matter and all this stuff. And she wants to beg him to run, but Gavriel says she'll notice that they didn't kill Lorcan, so that's going to damn them anyway, because that's why they're here. So they may as well do what they can. So Gavriel's basically like, he'll fight. And then Fenris says it's all a ploy to keep them from turning against her. And he says that when Rowan asked them to help him this spring, when Mistward was under attack, they all came, but they didn't ask Maeve first. So they kind of, like, went behind her back about it. And then afterwards, she was so pissed that Maeve, like, whipped them all and then tied Lorcan to a post for 2 days and just let Cairn whip him whenever he wanted to. And, like, he almost died, basically. It was very bad. And Lorcan doesn't want them to tell Rowan this at all. Elid touches Lorcan's hand then, and Lorcan, like, is annoyed that they told Rowan, but then he's like, they all knew the cost. They knew that that's what was going to happen, so it doesn't really matter. And he says that the odds are stacked against them, and Gavriel looks at Aelin and says that they'll stay until they're called back, and Lorcan says he'll fight if they get Elid to shore and under guard. So that's his condition. He'll promise to fight if they do that. So Rowan agrees to it, obviously. Which is just kind of funny because, like, I feel like Rowan would have done that anyway because that's what Aelin would have wanted. You're kind of just like, yeah. Lorcan could have asked for anything. Give me a key and I'll fight with you. Like, you know. we go to Rowan's point of view now, and they all spread out across the fleet of Melisandre's ships / Ansel's ships. And Lysandra is a sea dragon, and she's ready to attack the ships that Rowan marked for her. And he's just trying not to think about Aelin and where she is. A small, rowboat with just 3 Fae come over to him to ask for their reply. And because they were like, Aelin needs to surrender by sunrise or whatever. But Rowan says to inform Maeve that Aelin is no longer present, and he's like, the Fae's just like, that doesn't make any sense. You need to surrender. She needs to surrender, basically. But Rowan says she's not here.
Yeah, she's gone.
And, right? And, they just don't believe him. So, he says, I think the Fae guy says, Princess Aelin Galathinius needs to surrender. And he's like, Queen Aelin Galathinius is not here. And then he's like, if you agree to leave us in peace, we'll leave you in peace. And we're like, obviously that's not going to happen. But, he has to say it. So the Fae calls him a coward and Rowan a traitor. And Rowan knows that they, need to buy Aelin time. And apparently Dorian's last words to Rowan were, it's not such a hard thing to die for your friends. And he just thinks, he agrees with that. They're just here to buy Aelin time until she can get back and do some damage. And then Maeve's response comes in a barrage? A shit ton of arrows.
I think either pronunciation is acceptable.
Okay. But the arrows, blot out the sky, and he yells to, hold their shields. So, that's where we go to Tower of Dawn. Chapters 52 to 53, and we're in Chaol's point of view, and, he and Yrene go back to the Torre / the castle immediately at dawn. They leave a note for Hasara to say that Yrene needed to check on an ill patient, and Chaol's in a bunch of pain from riding out yesterday on the horse and then from all of the sex that they had last night. When they get back to the palace, he's basically limping and needs his cane. He kisses Yrene in the open, though, and they're super happy together, and it's just a nice moment. And he says that she needs to heal him so they can go have sex again. And we're like, cool. I'm glad she's using her powers for good. So they get to his room, and his room is basically trashed, and Kaja is there. So they ask what happened, and they're Yrene is kind of a bit of a bitch in this moment. She's basically just didn't you hear someone come in here? Why is the room trashed? What's going on? But Kaja just says that, she went to her parents' house since she knew Chaol was gone for the night, so she didn't stay in the palace. So she stayed with her parents. But Yrene doesn't really believe her and is super suspicious. But Chaol's just it's fine. I'm sure she's telling the truth. She's allowed to not be here if she doesn't have to do the job, basically.
Yeah.
But Yrene basically just thinks that Kaja left the door open for someone to come trash or did it herself.
Yeah, Irene's super suspicious.
She is very suspicious.
Weirds me out.
Yeah,
it's so out of character for her.
It seemed really out of character to be that mean to somebody who's just doing their job. Yeah. Yrene knows that, someone was looking for something, so they basically just tell Kaja to stop cleaning up all of the evidence, and they're gonna have a look around. And they find that, everything that they had stored in there, all the books and scrolls and everything, is gone, except for the one scroll that she put in his pair of boots.
I don't understand, the thought process of they looked in a ton of vases, but didn't think to look in his closet.
It
does seem dumb.
I don't get it.
I also don't get it.
Yeah. But, they made such a big deal about her putting it in his boot that obviously we knew it was going to still be there if none of the other ones were. Yeah. So Yrene says then that they should go to the Torre where it's safer, because obviously somebody tried to attack this room the other night, and then also
ransacked it.
Yeah, ransacked it. But then also, somebody killed somebody in the library. So, like,
where is it safe?
What is safe,
It's not safe anywhere.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but she says that they should go there. And also, they had planned to go talk to, yeah, and they're also trying to bring the scroll to Hafisa to see if she can read it, because
they
decided
to risk her life and ask her questions.
Yeah. So Chaol becomes a dick again, unsurprisingly. But he starts thinking, like, he's worried that Nesryn's going to show up and he'll have left and is staying with Yrene. And, like, that sends a message. And he just thinks, like, after the promises he made her and didn't deliver on, he doesn't want her to, like, come back and it be, like, a shock. He wants to talk to her first. You're like, it's a bit late for that. You were literally fucking all night last night. Like, this
you gave her so many orgasms.
Yeah. So, Chaol decides to send Nesryn a message that she should get back ASAP. And then he tells Yrene to go to the Torre, and he'll stay here because he can't be seen running. And obviously someone's on their trail. So, she's annoyed. Because she's like, I thought that the whole point was we were coming back to get this girl to go talk to Hafisa.
Yeah,
like,
and like,
why?
Also, just because he leaves to go to the Torre right now doesn't mean he can't come back to the palace. Like, like, he could always explain to Yrene, hey, Nesryn and I weren't together and we're not in love. However, there were insinuations made. And I'd like to be here when she gets back to explain.
Yeah. Also, and I don't know if he ever really works through this, but him taking out every little thing on Yrene really pisses me off. Like, him being like, oh, I'm a shitty person, I'm gonna, like, shut down. Or, like, obviously, when he walked for the first time, and she was like, it's obviously about him. I'm like, it's fucking not. He's an asshole to you.
Yeah.
It's pissing me off. Every time it happens, I'm just like, you're being really shitty to the one person helping you.
Yeah.
Like, it's bad. So yeah, she's annoyed, and he thinks that he did things wrong by her, so he hates himself for it.
Of course he does.
And we're like, yeah. Like, I get that that's his key.
That's his MO.
Characteristic, this book, but it annoys me. I'm like, stop.
Yeah.
So we go to Irene's point of view now, and she's annoyed, obviously, and she brings the scroll to Hafisa, who asks her how her party was, and says that the young lord must have given over his heart. And Irene's like, what?
It's like, how do you know that?
We're like, yeah. And Yrene is just like, well, we aren't officially together. And she's like, he's a lord of Aelin. And Hafisa says that she thought that they were past that. And then she asks, like, why she's here. Yrene closes the door and the windows and then tells her about the healers possibly being planted here to fight Valg. Wild. Okay. Hafisa is surprised that, like, the Valg are what they are fighting, because nobody thought to tell the person who might know anything about anything here. Like, why didn't we bring this up before now? But okay. And Hafisa looks at the scroll that Yrene brought her, but she can't read them, and we know they're word marks. But she does get other books that she has hidden in her office that, like, her predecessors told her were not for human eyes, and they are also written in word marks. So it kind of makes me think that, like, if they're not made for human eyes, then they're probably made for Fae eyes. So, like, the Fae left them there for them. And they kind of wonder if, like, the books explain it all. And Yrene asks if they can bring the books to Chaol's friend who can read them. And Hafisa says she needs to think on it, because obviously she was told not to let go of them, so she can't just give them to Yrene to bring to the northern continent. Hafisa tells her a story that she got from her predecessor long and it's basically like
passed down from healer on high to healer on high.
Yeah, they say like long ago this land belonged to the Fae, and they used to seal their dead in sarcophagi because they feared somebody getting in and possessing their dead bodies.
Oh,
which is interesting because I feel like we haven't really seen that happen.
No.
Like, they haven't used the dead.
And I don't know why.
I know.
If they're able to use the dead, why not? The only thing I could think of is that they enjoy torturing. Like, is it just that they enjoy torturing the souls while they're alive?
Yeah. I don't know. And I guess maybe there aren't many dead Fae around that they would use, because, like, I think the point too is like the Fae have stronger bodies if they had Fae bodies to take over. But anyway, terrifying.
It is terrifying.
Her predecessor also said that the Fae are the ones that left the healing teaches which founded the Torre. So there's a bit to corroborate this leap that they made.
So they were right.
Possibly.
Ugh, I hate it. I mean, we always knew they were going to be right, but...
Yeah. Yrene thinks that they must have been making progress, and that's why somebody, like, trashed the room and, like, is coming after them.
Sure.
Because everything has to be linked. So she goes down to the womb and listens to the bells, and she's in the water, and she walks to her bell after that, and she, like, gently touches her bell, and then she hears a faint ringing, and she feels like she could follow it, so she, like, hits her bell again, and then uses her magic to help her follow the sound she hears after. And she also thinks then of, like, the words that she heard before of, you must enter where you fear to go. And she thinks of the progress with, like, Chaol's stories, but, like, he hasn't told her everything, so she's like, there's more to this. So she's, like, basically thinking on this whole enter where you fear to go.
Which, isn't that something that Hafiza told her?
It kind of was like, it seemed like it was a god told her when she was in the bath the first time. It was just a voice from the heavens or into her head. She imagined it, basically.
Great, so she's hallucinating.
Yeah. But she thinks of, like, the Valg inside Chaol was feeding on, like, his doubts and his hatred of himself and his fears and all this shit. And she realizes, like, she needs to enter the void inside of herself, not in him. Like, it was meant for her. Like, this is a thing that she needs to...
I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah. It's basically coming to terms with the fact that, like, not all of the people in Otterlin are bad people. Like, she's confronting the fact that she's like, they killed my parents, they all are bad, they should all die. So now she's like, that festering hatred she has to confront it and get over it, I guess. I don't know.
I hate it.
Yeah. So yeah, she just thinks, like, she knows they aren't bad men or her enemies, and people in Otterlin also deserve saving. And she thinks then that she knows what the Valg is. And she thinks she has a similar creature inside. And she understands now. So right before she had this big old realization, she looks up and sees a bell that says Jaffa Towers, and it's 200 years old. So, like, she's like, her descendants actually did come from the Torre. So she had this big realization, and she realizes, like, she's not alone here, and that's a really big deal for her. And then she realizes that she has a similar creature inside of her, like the Valg. And I'm like...
But you don't.
Is it... Are we just saying it's hatred? It's fear? Are we saying it's depression? Like, we don't get enough information here. She's like, I understand it.
I find this realization...
Like, what is it?
Like, she can't heal him because she has a darkness inside of her. And, like, she can't heal his demons without confronting her own demons. And I just, like...
It's so they can fall in love and heal each other.
But, like, so, okay. Slight spoiler. This whole thing is coming to the realization that healers can be used, like, I guess, like, not really a spoiler, but they're coming to the realization that healers are useful in fighting against the Valg. Right?
Yeah.
But is her realization saying that any healer with trauma or hatred in their hearts, or, like, some sort of, like, hole inside of them for whatever reason, they're not effective? They're not going to be able to do it without first, like, healing themselves? I
think, and this is the best way I can take it without wanting to shoot them both,
okay,
is that she starts healing herself, and while she does that, she realizes that the hatred and fear inside of her is the same as what the Valg inside of Chaol is. So she's like, she's already on the process of healing herself because she's in love. Mm-hmm. And then she saw what she was healing from, and she's like, oh, that fear, I'm going to call it fear. That fear that Chaol has inside of him is the same as the fear I have inside of myself. So Valg really are just fear. I don't know how you heal fear, which is why I don't really like calling it fear. I'm like, I don't know. But what else could it be?
So are you saying that what's actually happening is that if she figures out to heal herself, then she can figure out how to heal that?
No, I'm saying she realized inside of herself that she has so much, like, hatred and anger and fear. And she only realized that because she's finally confronting it because she loves Chaol. And it doesn't mean you need to confront that inside of yourself to heal the Valg. It just means she now understands what the Valg is.
So what?
Based on feeling it in front. So she can heal it.
But you just said you didn't need to do that to heal the Valg.
But nobody knows how to. So she can heal it. She understands what it is now. She can heal it. She can tell other people what it is. They don't need to do the work she's done. Because she can be like, it's like this kind of, I don't know, illness or disease or whatever. I know.
I hate it.
But this is the only possible thing that makes me not want to rip the book up.
I hate it so much. It's
literally just like, and I hate this because I obviously love Aelin and Rowan, but they're saved by finding the person they love, and they can't go on without, like, being healed by that person. It's the same trope, and it's just like, not everybody needs to be healed by somebody.
Yeah.
Like, people do it on their own.
Yes.
People can figure it out on their own.
Yes, with the help of a licensed therapist.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, and, like, I get that this is a romantasy, so, like, the whole, like, love is an important part of it. But, like, this is actually the first time I'm gonna say this. I'm actually just slightly now, like, ever so slightly, annoyed that everybody in this book couples up.
Yeah.
Like, everybody. Like, I almost wish that, like, one or two of the main characters was just not coupled up. And was okay with that. And just showed us, like, another side. Like, yeah, it's a romantasy book, but, like, there are other types of love that can heal you or can fulfill you the same way romantic love can.
I wanted there to be more emphasis on Chaol and Dorian's relationship, because there's a part later on this week when we get to, like, a moment in their relationship, and I'm like, he's kind of realizing that that's when everything changed, and this was the worst part of it, is something happened when he left Dorian, basically. He was like, that's when I fucked up. Like, and Dorian is the reason he gets out of it. And in that moment, I'm like, we should have put so much more emphasis on the love that they have with each other.
Yeah, the friendship love.
Yes, yeah. I don't mean I mean platonic. I mean friendship,
yeah.
Exactly. But it's so important, and it's
considering
amazing to see men having relationships platonically. And also not platonically. I like all of them. But so important to see
But especially since, Chaol does not shut up about how Dorian is so important to him. You know what I mean? All the time. Dorian is the single most important person in his life. And, in his head, he's everything went downhill with Aelin when I knew that I could never choose her over Dorian, which is bullshit, but whatever. That's his narrative.
Yeah.
So, I just, it just sort of feels a bit cheap. Not cheap. Maybe that's not the right word. It just feels a bit inauthentic that this relationship that he's developed with Yrene is what makes him better. And not him healing his relationship with his best friend.
Yeah.
So, I And I will say, I do appreciate that, somebody needed to have a relationship with the healers in order to get the healers, on side, I guess. But, I don't know. I just don't know how I feel about it.
No, I get it. And, Chaol and Dorian never really worked together to fix their issues. Because, Crown of Midnight, they were fighting because of Aelin. And I just think, sure, I feel like they both realized you mean more to me than this dumb fighting we're doing once everything went to shit. But it's also they need a conversation. Yeah. They need to fix the stuff between them, and they just never really do. Anyway, we'll get some more into that at some point. Yeah. So we go back to Empire of Storms, chapters 64 to 65, and we're in Aelin's point of view, which is interesting because she's inside of a mirror with Manon. They have physical forms, but they aren't real.
So are they not corporeal?
But they can see each other.
But are they slightly see-through?
Well, I didn't see them. I just read it. But basically, they realize that they're in a memory. So it's basically, if you've seen Harry Potter or read the books, it's a pensive. Pensive. So yeah. Basically, a light comes towards them, and they're like, oh shit, this is a memory. So it's basically goes to Elena's point of view. So it's 1,000 years ago, and Elena is kneeling in front of a black sarcophagi, and the eye of Elena is the lock. So they went to the marshes to get the lock, and the eye of Elena that she already has is the lock. So we're like, great, this was a great task. Yeah. Thanks. Why couldn't the ghost just tell us all of this? This seems so stupid. Cool. So they locked Erewhon in with the eye of Elena. So Elena thinks the lock crafter crafted the sarcophagi out of the mountain itself, and it took all of the lock's power to bind Erewhon into this sarcophagus. And his armies are still fighting, and she didn't understand the lock's actual purpose. So yeah, she still doesn't understand what the lock's true purpose was. She just knows that its power saved them all. And Gavin is lying next to her because he was the distraction for Erewhon. And he's beat to shit, basically, but he's alive. He asks her what she's done because he realizes that she stole it because he's seen her father have it. And she says that Erewhon is sealed and he can't escape. And then all of the gods show up. And I'm sure if somebody with a better brain read this part of the book, they could figure out who each of the gods were based on the descriptions, but I didn't.
Oh, I didn't do that. But, like, something I don't understand about Gavin being like, what have you done? Like,
he knew all along.
I would think, because she's like, I need you to do something. This is, like, referring back to the beginning of the book, the prologue.
The prequel.
When Elena is saying to Gavin, like, I need you to do something with me. I need you to be the distraction while I, like, take care of it. Mm-hmm. And he's like, you'll never get close enough. And she's like, that's what you're for. So, like, I don't understand, like, what was he expecting her to do? What did he think was happening?
I don't know.
And, like, if he knew... I don't understand how... One, I don't understand how he knew she automatically stole it. And two, I don't understand, like, how he knew that it was bad. Like, how did he know that what she did, even if she did steal it, how did he know that this was like, oh shit? Like, for all he knows, it's a weapon that her dad had that she took so she could use. Like, I don't understand how he knew the significance of it. So,
I don't know.
Anyway. And, like, side note, so she used the power of the lock in Erewhon's tent when they distracted him, and did it all of a sudden transport him and them to this mountain?
No, I think that the last battle must have been near Morath, because this is where, like, his
body was,
tomb was in Morath, So, like, the fighting must have been there.
But, like, how did they get him there?
I'm sure they were, like, fighting over there, and then he was like, it's them, I'll go kill them, you know, something stupid. We don't get that part, though. I wonder if, like, does he see the gods before she does, and he's like, what did you do? Because the gods show up behind her, and she's like, shit. But one of the gods says that their sister's bloodline betrayed them, and her father was actually supposed to use the lock to seal the keys and send them home, and they would take the Dark King with them to their home, where they would be able to destroy him into a bunch of different, like, million different pieces, because they're super powerful in their homeland. They say, like, the lock was promised to them, and that's when she realizes that her father has, like, the word keys. She didn't really realize this before now. Her mother sacrificed her body to forge this lock 10 years ago, and at the time, her mother told her that, like, she wouldn't remember them or care about them because, like, then she's a god. It's just, like, the gods, we find out, obviously, the gods are from a different world. But how did she become a god? Is she not, like, is her mother from this other world and was alive and then gave up her body, so now she's with the gods? Like, I don't understand. Or was she human and gave up and became a god?
No. So I think she was a goddess and actually fell in love with Brannon and gave up her immortality or whatever to be with him and have kids with him and have a life with him. Okay. And I don't know if they used magic to do it. Like, I don't know. But I think then giving up that mortality and, like, her life to become a goddess again was sort of how they forged the lock.
Sacrifice. Yeah. It does remind me a little bit of Akhtar when Amren is like,
yes,
I'm going to leave my body and I won't care who you are. I'm going to destroy everything, kind of thing.
But she obviously did care who they were and didn't kill them, so it's fine. But
yeah, and the same thing kind of happens here, so, you know. But obviously there's, like, a different feeling. So it does make me wonder if, like, the gods and goddesses, who are just a different species from a different plane of existence, basically, Are they similar to Amryn in some way?
Oh, yeah. Could be.
Like, did she just put herself in a fae body, kind of like Amryn did, and that's how she became mortal?
Oh, yeah.
Herself.
Yes. Oh, my God, you're a genius.
I am not. I did not understand this at all until I'm talking it through presently. So, there must be something to that. Anyway. One of the gods basically says to kill Gavin since they were betrayed. They're like, she deserves to have him die since she did this to us. No, actually, one of the gods says to unleash Erewhon again. Like, just let him out and say, fuck all this. And she's like, please don't. But they do tell Elena that, like, Erewhon is going to rise again one day. And her big thing is like, well, someone better will be here and they'll be prepared to fight him. Like, she really didn't set that in motion at all. She then offers them anything, and that's when they look at Gavin, and she's just like, no, please don't take him.
You just offered them anything.
I know. Her mother then, who isn't supposed to care about her, says that the gods and goddesses can wait a little longer to go home, and they tell, like, the other gods say, like, there must be a price, and they say Mala's bloodline will bleed to forge the lock anew, and Elena will be the one to lead whoever it is in that bloodline to slaughter. So, they say they'll keep the original deal, they'll take the Dark King with them, and tear him apart in their lands, and then whoever this bloodline heir person is going to be will forge the lock with their life, like Brannon had planned to do with his own life. He was going to give up his life to lock up the keys and send them home. So she obviously doesn't really have a choice. She has to agree to that. And it really doesn't sound that bad for her. Like, she gets to live her life out like it is. And eventually she's going to have to
tell some stranger.
Help. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, in her head, I'm sure she's like, no big deal. Gavin didn't hear anything that the god said. He could only hear what she could say. So he asks her, like, what that was, and she lies and just says that everything's fine. Yeah. And she just needs to help next time he's awoken. And he actually has his hand on the sword Damaris, which is Truth Teller, so he knows that she's lying. We jump to a different memory now, and Nehemia actually finds the mirror after weeks of looking for it alone. And I'm like, she lived in this marsh for weeks alone.
Yeah.
Gross. But it makes her even more badass, which I do.
Yeah, and the fact that she went completely by herself. Like, there's no huge, like, pile of guards, like, taking her there. She survived those marshes all by herself.
Yeah, hunting and, like, all of this shit. Like, she's badass. But she finds the mirror, and Ghost Elena asks why she's there. And you're like, don't be a bitch. And Nehemia is just like, I was called to open it and to pay the price. And Elena's like, those riddles weren't about you, it's about somebody else. And she's like, what the fuck? So Nehemia asks, like, in what way is she supposed to pay? And Elena tells her that Mala's line must pay, and there are currently 2 branches. So obviously one is Dorian and one is Aelin. And Nehemia's like, Aelin is dead. But she's not dead. And we're still in Elena's brain, but she thinks that Aelin isn't dead because of her, which we don't get any information on that yet. Elena says that Nehemia misread the riddles and that it's one of those 2 that need to do it. And Elena, her father, and Rhiannon Crocken forged this pool of memory for either, at this point, Dorian or Aelin. Elena then tells Nehemia that these 2 bloodlines are going to converge in the palace and that she should go there. And she tells her that she'll recognize Aelin because she has turquoise eyes with a gold ring, and by the mark on her brow, which is like the master's mark, the like nameless.
But like, I didn't think that was a visible mark.
It's not, but Nehemia knows word marks.
But that doesn't help if it's invisible.
Listen. It comes up once, and she's like, oh, it must be her. I'm like, she definitely knew before that, but okay. But Elena basically tells Nehemia to guide Aelin. Like, not even worried about Dorian at this point. It's all on Aelin. Nehemia asks the price, and Elena hates the gods in this moment, but she says that Nehemia will never see Eoway again. And Nehemia asks if her people will survive, and Elena says she doesn't know, so Nehemia starts to plan for that. And then Elena said one of them must be ready to do what needs to be done.
Ugh.
And it's just like, Nehemia didn't have to die.
But she did because she had to get Aelin to feel something. And to finally confront who she is.
Why couldn't we just get Dorian?
I don't know.
Okay.
To be fair, I don't know.
I think the reason is what we find out next week. Elena basically just decides it's Aelin because she was already spared once, so...
Yeah.
I think it's dumb. Anyway, we go back to Tower of Dawn now, chapters 54 to 56, and it's Chaol's point of view. And it's the next day, and he hasn't heard from Yrene, so he sends Shen to check that she actually made it back to the Torre, because obviously something's trying to kill her. But she's safe, and he's still in a shit ton of pain, and he can barely move around, even with his cane.
Why?
So, from riding a horse.
Fuck's sakes.
And having sex.
Okay.
So he's just thinking about like how it's not safe here for Yrene, and he wants to explain to Nesryn before Yrene stays with him. And it's just like, ugh, I'm over it. So he goes to bed, and the next morning he wakes up in even more pain, and he's panicked. But he can move each of his legs at, like, the different sections. Like, he can still move them. He's just super stiff. And all I can think about is that Gallivant episode where he, like...
Yes, he can't move.
How did you get on the horse?
I haven't got
on it. Which makes me like it a tiny bit. Yrene shows up then, and she asks what he did yesterday, and he just says, like, he took a bath, and she's like, no, you idiot, you shouldn't use heat for sore muscles, you should use ice.
Is that true? I use heat, so I alternate, like, I don't...
Yeah, like, I can't imagine her putting it in there if there isn't some science behind it, but, like, I get in a hot bath after my muscles are strained often. So I just... Yes.
I don't get it.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, I didn't look into it. But, so she gets him to roll over, and it's terrible. And she actually, like, looks into his spine again, and she says that the, I guess, valg, we're calling it, crept back a bit. And she says that, like, it's expanded more, so that's why it's, like, it's not just soreness, it's also that this wound is...
festering.
Yeah. Expanding, whatever. But he just says, like, he's not surprised, and she's just like, what do you mean? And he kind of doesn't answer it. But obviously, he's been, like, self-loathing and hating himself for the past 2 days, so of course it's gonna happen. So she gives him the bit and says that she's going in and ending this today, and he asks... what if he can't end it today? Like, what if he's not strong enough? And she just says, like, that's up to you. And she tells him that she has a theory she wants to test, and he's the only one she can try on. So this is where we're like, obviously she figured something out. Maybe we'll get more information on it. I don't remember what happens at the end of this book. Like I said, I've only read it a few times. So
I don't think so.
So she basically becomes a spear of light and goes inside of his spine. And I read this way too literally because I know it means that she just like, I know it
her
means
magic.
That her magic did, but it is worded that she becomes a spear of light and goes into his spine. And I was like, is this some magic school shit? That's where I went.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So she goes right into the, like, darkest part of his spine where the valg is festering. And Yrene starts fighting it, and Chaol immediately blacks out from the pain, and he's in a pit of nothing where he is nothing. And this is kind of the moment where he confronts everything that has ever happened in his life. So he sees his father first, obviously throwing him out of his original home, and then he sees himself selling, like, himself out to save, quotation mark, Aelin, by sending her to Wendelin. And he kind of, at this point,
selling himself out.
Like, selling himself back to his father.
Oh, for fuck's sake. For her.
Even though he was like, I can't leave Dorian for Aelin. He literally did. And now, anyway.
But again, he didn't know she was a fae then.
True. So yeah. So he actually wonders something that I think is kind of interesting. So his father, to, like, get his father to back him to send Aelin, Celaena away, he agreed to go home. So then he wonders if his father was actually, like, trying to shield him from, like, the darkness that was coming. Like, if his father knew something and was trying to get him away from the castle. Which I think is very interesting and doesn't ever come up again.
No. But, like, I just feel like maybe that was a moment of you wanting your parent to not be a selfish piece of shit.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, because he really is just a dick in the next book, too. So, anyway, it's just an interesting thought, but I don't think it's true. But he thinks then, like, he broke his word, and he blames Aelin for it, and she ruined everything. And he then sees her, and he thinks she's a liar, a murderer, and a thief, and he hates her. And, yeah, and he thinks he was, like, so bewitched by her, and he broke himself because of it. And she walked to a fae prince, like Chaol was just a broken toy, and she went to get the next best thing, basically. It's like, okay. So Rowan shows up in his imagination then, and Aelin looks at him, and all of, like, because he sees her in, like, her terrifying glory, but, like, all of that kind of, like, fades when she looks at Rowan, because she's, like, at ease and in love with him, and, you know. So he hates them for it because they're in love. And he thinks that Aelin ruined him. And she showed up when it was too late to throw his uselessness in his face. And you're like, you are the one that sent her away. And now you're complaining that she came back too late. Like, you did this. You can't have both things. You can't send her away and then be pissed that she's not there.
He is a study in contradictions.
Yes. So he thinks, like, he helped Aelin get back to herself. In the beginning of Throne of Glass, he ran with her, and in Crown of Midnight, like, he helped her get back to who she is, which, like, is fair, and she was grateful, and she even said to him at one point, like, you're what a guard should be, kind of thing, and, like, you know, ugh. But then he thinks, obviously, until Nehemia died, and she gutted Archer. And he thinks that when she gutted Archer, she closed her eyes and looked like she had in the throes of passion after killing him. So that is the moment that he's like, when she killed Archer, she looked like she looks when she has an orgasm. And I think that is why he's so pissed. That, like, literally, that is what he's saying. She, like, that's why he's pissed that she killed Archer, because she loved it as much as she loves an orgasm.
So I missed this. I did not pick this up.
I told you earlier that this was the first time I've realized it.
Like, I am shook!
Yeah. Yeah.
For fuck's sakes. Just when I thought I couldn't like him any less, I like him less.
Well, I'm just like, was she faking her orgasm? And that's why you can't tell her facial expressions. Anyway, that's why he can't stop thinking about Archer because of that. Yep. And I really didn't notice it.
No.
But until this read. Yeah. So he obviously thinks killer, liar, thief, and then he hears you'll always be my enemy. Then he sees Yrene and her mother in the garden appear, and it makes him think about how he failed Yrene and he failed Nesryn. And then Rowan holds Aelin's wrist, touching her scars, and her mask slips again, and she told him, she told Chaol, he thinks, like, she told him the truth, and that she was sorry when she left. Originally, before she even met Rowan, she was like...
Yeah.
Gave him the date to be like, this is the truth of me, and she said she was sorry. And he thinks that she waited to end it with him before she got with Rowan. And he didn't wait to end it with
Nesryn.
So he's like, Aelin is godless and irreverent, and she honored him like he didn't bother honoring Nesryn. And we're like...
So, in other words, he thinks that Aelin is such a piece of shit, and the fact that she did something better than him means he's an even bigger piece of shit.
Yeah. I guess that's the only thing that we can, like, he hates himself as much as we hate him. So, I guess that's good.
I guess. Ugh, I hate it so much.
Ugh. And he also knows that, like, Rowan waited to let her decide, and he knows that Rowan would have, like, stood by whatever decision she made, even if she had have decided to stay with Chaol, which, like, obviously he would, but that was never an option. And I think this must be the crux of a lot of his issues, because he thinks of her promise of, I will always choose you, because she did say that to him at one point in Crown of Midnight 5,000 years ago. But she has changed, and this is like the big realization for him. So, like, she ends up vanishing, so I guess he's like come to terms with her or some shit. I don't fucking know.
Can I...
So
it just angers me so much that out of all of the trauma, all of the death, everything, the crux of his pain is that his ex-girlfriend was mad at him and he hated her guts.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we're focusing on.
Yeah, I think it's that she hated him and he hates himself.
But also hates her.
And hates her. Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
It's the absolute worst.
So, then we go to the scene of Sorsha being beheaded and Dorian yelling, I love you, and run to Chaol. And he obviously did that. And that is when everything cleaved for him, and he thinks he doesn't deserve Dorian. Which is interesting. Like, this is what I mean about the male friendships. Like, this is what the most important relationship. This is the thing that was his turning point of, like, whatever. So, the darkness then shows him Dorian killing Chaol's men. And he knew that, like, Dorian fought against it, and it's just awful, obviously. But I still don't know if this is, like, I'm sure this is how it happened. Like, we know probably this is what happened, but I don't know if this is just something that the Val thing inside of him is making up, or if it's an actual memory from the king. Anyway. Chaol's then thinking that, like, he fought against magic and he pushed himself, like, away from it, which actually is what ended up breaking him even faster. Because if he had just embraced it, he would have, like, not ended up in the same position he ended up in. And I'm like, okay,
yeah,
sure. But then, obviously, he's been healing here, because he thinks broken, like, the physical sense, like he's talking about his legs. But he didn't think that he deserved the healing. And Dorian is, like, I guess, still in his head waiting for him, and he thinks he has one promise left that he hasn't broken, and it is to Dorian to get help from the Coggin, basically, and to, like, you know, help the war, whatever. And he thinks of talking to Aelin and saying, what if we go on to pain and despair, and Aelin telling him, then it's not the end. So he thinks this is not the end. And he whispers to Dorian he's going to come home. And Yrene appears, and she's white and shining. And she tells him that the darkness was Valg, but is now a part of him. And he asks if it'll grow again. And she says, only if you let it. So you need to love yourself as much as I love you.
I don't like it.
Me neither. So he asks if it'll hurt. And she says, one last time. And he, like, decides to forge himself anew and takes her hand. So he's gonna start to love himself.
Sure he will.
Yeah. And this is why I'm like, what are we saying that the Valg is like? Are we saying it's like depression? Do they have a cure for depression? Like, I don't really understand. And that's kind of why I hope there's more to it in the book. But it's like, is it fear? Is it hatred? Is it depression? Like, what is this? But anyway, hopefully we'll figure that out later. And if we don't, I'll complain about it later.
I'm excited to hear you complain about it.
Thank you. So we go over to Empire of Storms now, chapters 66 to 67, and we start in Adian's point of view, and he is ready for battle. Ro, who is his real father, because obviously Gavriel's there too, and he's like, that's not my dad.
You're not my father.
Trained.
Okay,
right.
Can I just say, though, this whole thing of, I don't know.
The point of it?
No, I don't want to be insensitive. Because I don't know what it's like to have an absentee father. However, don't you think, like, okay, if you never knew who your father was, and then you find out who it is, and then you find out that they did not know that you existed, but that then they, as soon as they found out you existed, they started showing up and helping.
Yeah.
Like, you'd think you'd be a little less antagonistic about that person. Like, it's not, it's not Gavriel's fault that Adian's mom didn't tell him about him.
Yeah. I think Adian's issue is he can't look at his mother in any other light than that she was perfect. So if he admits that she, like, was wrong for not telling Gavriel about having a son, or, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think he's, like,
but, like,
not thinking that she's a person with duality.
But, like, I'm also not saying that the mom was wrong. Like, she did what she felt she needed to do in the moment. So, like, I'm not saying that he should be like, oh, she made the wrong choice. I'm just saying that, hey, my dad's not completely to blame for this. He didn't, like, it's no one's fault, but, like, Gavriel's not to blame for not knowing about his existence.
Yeah, I think it's harder, too, because, like, if your father worked for your enemies and didn't have any say in his future life, it would really put a damper on it. I don't know. I just don't think it's necessary. I think it's a storyline that, like, just, I get there being a bit of tension here. I don't know why it needs to be so bad.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't get it. So yeah, he thinks Ro, who is his real father, in quotation marks, trained him well, and the magic shield is working well thanks to Dorian, even though Aelin is super pissed at him still. But Aelin is, like, talking up the men and telling them that, like, Fae can be killed, like, they'll be fine.
Yeah, it's like a Braveheart speech.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those moments. So arrows come tipped with magic, and it attacks the shield, and Rowan flares his magic, and they shoot their arrows to distract from the attack underwater. So then we jump over to Lysandra's point of view. And she thinks, like, other creatures are eager to join her because they're hungry. And at Rowan's signal, she dives as a sea dragon. And she actually made a few changes to her form. She gave herself opposable thumbs.
Smart.
Yeah. And she made her tail have more control and into a club instead of having spikes. Arrows come for her, but she's actually made, like, a spider silk scales on her back, kind of like Abraxos has with his wings. So she studied his wings. And she's basically going now ship to ship to hit where Rowan had marked them. So he only marked certain of them, and she's hitting off the rudders and putting holes in the boats so that they start to sink. And so they can't
again, Lysandra coming in clutch, saving the day. MVP.
So she, as she's doing all of this, she thinks of the court that could change the world. And she thinks of her promise to Aelin and to her queen. So she keeps going. Like, she's just the best of all of them. There is nobody better. Like, after reading this book again, I want to get a Lysandra tattoo because I think she's
badass. Get a snow leopard.
A snow leopard? I want a snow leopard, yes. That's exactly what I want. We go over to Dorian's point of view now, and he's kind of just, like, putting all of his power into the shield. And Manon and Aelin aren't back yet, and he's like, shit, Aelin and Rowan were scary when they were so pissed at him, but he thinks he did the right thing. Aelin told him that fear is a death sentence, and they don't need to survive. They just need to put a big enough dent into the army so that when she's back, she can take them out with her magic. And he knows, like, if they're dead, she would end the world for rage, and he thinks the world would deserve it, and Manon might help her do it, and he thinks he would wanted to get to know her more. The Fae are advancing, and Dorian is waiting on Rowan's sign, and then he, like, starts to realize that he may not have made the best decision sending Aelin and Manon away right then, and he's like, I might have just, like, killed everybody and failed everybody. You're like,
maybe.
Yeah. Possibly. But then he thinks Rowan didn't fail them, because enemy ships surround them and take down Maeve's flag, which is a black flag with a perching owl, which is interesting, that her symbol is an owl.
Yes.
And they leave up their flag, which is silver with a screaming hawk. So it's like the Whitethorn flag. And they end up opening fire on the rest of Maeve's armada. So we go to Rowan's point of view, kind of-ish now. And like you said, he told his cousins about Aelin, her fire and love, about Erewhon, the keys, and Maeve wanting the keys. And he begged on his knees. And each of his cousins basically said that they'd consider. And he knows that he's begging them to, like, commit treason. And he knows that they're going to lose everything. Their homes, their titles, their lands, any treasures, like anything back in Dornell. But they all did it. And Rowan roars now, and he thinks he didn't have an armada for Aelin, so he won one. And he wishes that she was here to see it as they all attack Maeve. And I'm like, it's so sweet. And she never really sees it.
At the same time, though, he didn't really win her an armada. She sort of got herself an armada, and he added to it.
Yeah.
Just saying.
But he helped out.
He helped. He helped. What a good boy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all he's good for.
Ooh.
Not really. So we go over to Lorcan's point of view now, and he's shocked that a third of Maeve's fleet turned on the rest. And he knows that Rowan did it for Aelin, and he knows that Maeve is going to wipe the Whitethorn line off of the map for this. Like, she will not let this go. Which isn't surprising. Adian starts a victory chant of Rowan's name then, and Lorcan starts to think that, like, he starts to almost, like, have some hope that love could, like, prevail, and then he's like, nah, Maeve's here, I gotta shut that down, she's gonna destroy everything. And he's not necessarily wrong. And then he sees Fenris jump through nothing to grab Gavriel, because obviously Maeve has summoned them, and he sees Gavriel point, and he knows that, like, that point is costing him something, because, like, he's betraying the
Maeve,
blood oath. But he points to where Lorcan left a lead. And Lorcan doesn't give a fuck anymore about the battle or his promise to Rowan, because he thinks he promised her first that he would never leave her, or whatever the words he said were. He would always come for her. Yeah. Something like that. So he just gets in a boat and fucks off to row over to get to her. So we go to Elid's point of view now, and she can hear the battle, and she begs the god on her shoulder, Aneth, to keep Lorcan alive and away from Maeve, and to, like, help her friends out. And all Aneth is saying to her is basically, like, see, and she's, like, looking around, but she doesn't see anything. And then Aneth vanishes, and Elid thinks, like, she ran away and seems scared, which is interesting. And wind pushes clouds to cover the sun, like they know that Aelin draws strength from the sun. And then Elid worries that Vernon is coming for her, but that isn't who appears on the beach. And then we go to Tower of Dawn.
Yikes.
And I'm like, God damn it.
What a cliffhanger.
Right? And that's the last Empire of Storms this week. So Tower of Dawn, chapter 57. We're in Nesryn's point of view, and they get back, and Falcon is, like, almost dead, and Sartaq calls a healer to help Kadara, because Kadara is obviously in a lot of pain, and he hugs Borte and asks how she came, because she was forbidden. And Yrene actually says that Borte came to him and said she was going on a stupid mission so he could let her die or go along. And Sartaq just says, like, Borte was forbidden to go, but she says she was forbidden by her Hearth Mother, but as Yrene is her betrothed, she is also loyal to his Hearth Mother, who was fine with her going. And Hulan is there, and she just says that she's going to have a talk with that Hearth Mother because she's pissed.
I mean, can I just say, it was genius on Borte's part. Oh, that was so very smart. It's like, I'm just talking to my future Hearth Mother, excuse me.
Yeah, she got approval. Like, she did it. So Borte walks away then, and Yrene says to Sartaq and Nesryn that Borte actually promised to set the date for them to marry to get him to go, but then he says he doesn't approve of the date that she chose, and, like, smirks and then runs after her. I'm like, I want more of their story. Like,
and I want to know, like, is it because the date she chose is, like, 5 years away, and he's like, that's too far away? Or is he just being obstinate, like, to be obstinate?
Yeah. I want to know, too. I love it. Sartaq actually sways then, so Nesryn, like, lunges for him to keep him standing, and he's able to stay on his feet, and they just hold each other. And he just says that she saved him. And then they're, like, very close to each other. And you're like, are they going to kiss? But then Falcon flashes and turns from a spider into, like, a beat to shit human. And Nesryn kind of becomes overwhelmed by the fact that they are all alive. Because obviously there was a moment when they thought that they were going to die. And Sartaq tells her not to cry. He says, what would they say of Neith's arrow then? And she just laughs and leans into a hug with him. And Sartaq, like, strokes her hair and holds her. And we're like, what is happening? So 2 days later, all of the council of clans decide to meet. So all of the Hearth Mothers and their captains come. Nesryn and Sartaq haven't kissed, but they are always holding hands, and they sleep in bed together and snuggle. And I guess the morning after their kerfuffle, Sartaq is looking at his hair, and she just tells him that it's gonna grow back, which is just kind of cute, but also funny. So everybody's in this meeting, and Sartaq tells them all that the Karen Kui have stirred again, and the threat was dealt with by the Burlad clan, so Yren's clan, but they will return, and that the Karen Kui have heard a dark call and are poised to answer it. And then Nesryn explains that, like they learned many things that are going to change the war in the world, and she tells them about Maeve and Erewhon, and, like, she doesn't tell them about the keys, of course, but, like, basically about the handmaidens.
Yeah, like, this is who we're dealing with, essentially.
Yeah. Sartaq says that he leaves the choice to them. Like, they can all decide together who wants to fly, but if anybody wants to go to the north and fight, they will fly with him under the Coggins banner, and then they leave to let them all discuss it, and Falcon comes with them. So Nesryn thanks Falcon for saving her, and he says that he has no one to care about anyway, and nobody to care about him. And she asks if he'll come back with them to the northern continent, and he asks if they would want him to. And then she says she has something to tell him. And we kind of do a little jump in time, and he's just crying. And she says she doesn't know much about Lysandra, but the age and location match, but not the description. So he says that she was a plain brown-haired girl, not a black-hair, green-eyed beauty. So, like, obviously, Lysandra...
We knew, yeah. She changed her. Because didn't she say something along the lines of, like, the prettier she was, the more, like, money she got when she was begging?
Yeah, exactly. And, like, now she doesn't remember what she looked like, which is just obviously sad. But, you know, it is what it is. So Falcon then agrees that he'll go with them back to the northern continent to meet Lysandra, basically. The clans have made a decision, so they basically go back to hear what the decision is, but a messenger intercepts them and gives Nesryn a letter. She reads the message twice and tells Sartaq that Chaol needs her in Antica and begs they return immediately. Sartaq reads the message then and says something is wrong. And Nesryn thinks Chaol never asks for help, so this is bad, and she asks when they can leave. So that's where we end the week.
Yikes.
And I'm like, did he really find out anything that bad? Like,
no, but that's what I mean. He didn't really find out anything, like, I don't know. I understand him, like, wanting her to come back, because she's been gone a long time. She's been gone at least, like, 4 weeks, maybe 5. You know what I mean? Like, she was supposed to be gone for 3. So, like, I see him wanting her to come back, but, like, does he really have such, like, costly information that they need to leave now?
And for her to be like, this is a disaster. Because, like, the information she has about Maeve is
big.
Earth-shattering. Yeah. The information he has is maybe healers can
help.
Stop the Valg possession.
They can help.
Maybe. We're still not sure at this point. We need more information.
Well, I think his information is more like, hey, we don't have to kill the people that the Valg are infesting. Maybe we could clear it instead.
Yeah, but, like, I feel like he didn't even really know that when he wrote the letter to her.
No, he didn't. And also, they sort of already knew that anyway, because Aelin did that with Dorian. So, like, they already know it's possible. So, like, I don't understand why he's, like, so urgent to get her to come back, except for it to be to clear his own conscience. And be like, I need to tell her what happened with Yrene, so I need her to come back, which is a completely selfish reason to get her to come back.
And also, I think he's ready to leave now, which is, like, fair. If he had sent a letter to be like, hey, you need to come back, we need to go home, Like, we need to, like, but we didn't get the letter. I wish we did, because I want to know what he said. But, yeah, we don't.
No, we don't.
So, yeah, I guess that's where we wrap it up for this week. If you want to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in our episodes, or if you have any book suggestions, you can reach out to us by email at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com, or on Instagram or Facebook at coffeeandcoread, and coffee.coread on TikTok.
So, next week, we've done it! It'll be our last week with this tandem read. It is wild.
I can't believe it.
And it also means that I'll be going back to school the week after, which is lit. Anyway.
Sad.
So, next week is week 9. We'll be reading the end of both books. So that is Empire of Storms, chapters 68 to 75, and Tower of Dawn, chapters 58 to Fireheart. So, make sure to follow along. And if you're enjoying our chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you get our content. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you on the next page.